Chapter 44:12. You're here. Doesn't it mean that Qing Luo is really in Chinya Ridge? Huang Fusheng asked. Bai Mei held her chin as she smiled brightly. Don't worry. I will leave you with your last breath and let Yi Qing Luo see you one last time. As she smiled, the hostility between her brows suddenly became sinister. Go. In a split second, the originally dim sky, which was covered by the dense forest, had completely darkened. Like a huge black fog, it shrouded the entire sky. The strong gale at this moment was like a soaring dragon, rolling and blowing everything in the surroundings. Gui Wu's enchantment, under this black fog, was actually on the verge of collapsing. Master Gui Wu! Yan Xiao Yi and the rest leaned against Gui Wu's side, looking ahead vigilantly. Even Gui Wu's enchantment couldn't fight against the sudden surge of energy. The other party came prepared. Gui Wu said expressionlessly, Someone is targeting me. You guys be careful. After so many exchanges, how could Secluded Palace not know of Gui Wu's existence? Gui Wu's voice just landed. Rumble. A deafening explosion was heard, exploding in the air. The strong, profound light directly exploded Gui Wu's enchantment. Fortunately, after Gui Wu's reminder, everyone had already made the most appropriate adjustments to themselves. After the enchantment exploded, everyone dodged in time. Without the protection of the enchantment, everyone could clearly feel a vast and powerful pressure almost squeezing their internal organs to the point of exploding. Gui Wu was about to open up the enchantment again. Suddenly, he saw a figure rolling out from the crowd. A strong, profound wave directly penetrated Gui Wu's unformed enchantment. I'm sorry. My mission today is to stop you. Deliberately using profound energy, the tone of the voice was changed, sounding extremely cold. Yan Xiao Yi's gaze fell on that person. The identity of that person immediately appeared in her mind. Secluded Palace. Palace Lord on the surface. That person, wasn't he the Palace Lord of Secluded Palace on the surface? That Palace Lord who seemed to have some thoughts about Qing Luo previously? It's him. Hearing that, everyone looked at the Palace Master of Nether Abyss Palace. Why is he here? No one answered this question. The Palace Master of the Secluded Darkness Palace directly attacked Gui Wu. His attack was swift and fierce, without the slightest hesitation. Gui Wu walked up expressionlessly. The Palace Master of the Netherworld Palace moved. The 100 black-robed men that descended from the sky also quickly launched their attacks. In an instant, the air was filled with sinister, killing intent. Be careful! Zhou Emo swept his gaze over the group of people beside him, then immediately raised his hand and slashed out a monstrous wave of air, dispersing the incoming hurricane. He hugged the cute girl in his arms tightly, and his voice was solemn, no longer as frivolous as before. I'm afraid Wu won't be able to protect everyone. The other party has more people, and each one of them isn't weak. You have to be careful. He paused for a moment, and his pitch suddenly rose as he said word by word. If you want to live to see Xiao Qing Luo, then protect yourselves well. Don't let yourselves die. Bang! The deafening explosion of the profound wave collided with the violent hurricane. The intense vibration of the profound rays swept through the air. After Zhou Mo's words rang, everyone's tensed-up hearts at this moment seemed to be filled with endless battle intent. Between their brows was a look of unswerving determination. Update speed is the fastest. Hurry up and read it. Download address. Cell phone reading. Chapter 44:13. They wanted to live. Only if they were alive would they be able to see Qing Luo. They absolutely must not become Qing Luo's burden. They absolutely must not drag Yi Qing Luo down. The young lads and young ladies, under the power of faith of a person named Yi Qing Luo, each and every one of them actually erupted with a power that was even more shocking than usual. For a time, More than 100 people were unable to easily capture them according to the plan. Instead, it made the other party more courageous as they fought, injuring quite a number of them. Of course, the world group's few people were also heavily injured. The air was filled with a thick stench of blood. Miserable cries reverberated through the entire sky. Bai Mei stood on a big tree by the side as she looked at the scene in front of her with an impatient look. Her charming brows were filled with impatience. Really useless. She kicked away the black-robed man who was sent flying in front of her as the expression on her face turned even more alluring and gaudy. But the viciousness between her brows was filled with murderous intent. Her gaze swept towards the palace lord of Seclusion Palace, who was still entangled with Guiwu but was unable to injure him at all. She suddenly flew up, and her majestic, profound energy broke through the surging profound wave which was formed when the both of them were entangled. Her figure was swift and violent as she charged towards Guiwu at lightning speed. Bai Mei's target was very clear. She wanted to finish off Guiwu together with the palace lord of Seclusion Palace. To them, Guiwu was the core of these few brats. As long as Guiwu fell, how long could these few brats continue to be arrogant for? Guiwu had not expected that someone would suddenly launch a sneak attack. He turned sideways, and his palm wind flipped as he struck down horizontally. The profound light opened up a barrier and blocked Bai Mei's attack. The palace lord of Seclusion Palace retracted his hand as he flicked his sleeves and looked sideways at her. "What do you mean?" "Useless trash." Bai Mei didn't conceal her disdain. Trash brought out a bunch of trash and can't even deal with a few trash. Bai Mei. The eyes under the black robe of the palace master of the Netherworld Palace suddenly darkened. His eyes were filled with coldness. "Since you have a problem with me, then get out of this mission as soon as possible." Bai Mei rolled her eyes as she gave a sweet, ridiculing laugh. "Don't think that I don't know what you're thinking about. Still thinking of helping Yi Qing Luo, that little slut, to keep these people alive? Do you think she'll be grateful just because you did that?" Bai Mei covered her mouth and continued to mock. "She won't. From the moment you became the palace master of the Dark Palace, you and she will only walk 2 different paths." "Shut up!" The palace master of the Netherworld Palace snapped. Her tone was filled with rage. "Bai Mei, what I'm thinking has nothing to do with you. If you want to do the support mission, then shut your mouth. If you don't want to do the mission, then scram. Tisa, every time you open your mouth, it's about the mission. In that case, our palace master of the Netherworld Palace has completely abandoned all feelings?" Bai Mei dragged out her tone as she looked at him with a smile which didn't look like a smile. The palace master of the Netherworld Palace's eyes were extremely cold as he clenched his fist tightly. His fist wind was filled with strong, profound energy, and the surrounding hurricane also underwent a huge change. Bai Mei raised her brows disapprovingly. "Why? Still want to hit me? Why don't you try?" The 2 of them looked like they were at each other's throats as they looked aggressive. Guiwu's gaze changed slightly as his peripheral vision swept across the crowd, towards the few people who were surrounded by the black-robed men. His emotionless eyes were filled with a slight fluctuation which couldn't be seen. Following that, he leapt up and headed towards the direction of Yan Xiaoyi and the rest. He had just turned around. A cold laugh was heard from his back. Chapter 44:14. Master Guiwu. Haven't you heard of the saying, when fighting, don't easily turn your back to the enemy? Bai Mei giggled delicately. Her laughter was full of killing intent. Guiwu suddenly stopped in his tracks. His body reacted quickly. He leapt into the air and counterattacked with a backhand. But no matter how fast his reaction was, Bai Mei's piercingly cold, profound qi was already heading straight for his fatal spot. The speed was so fast that it carried a strong killing intent. Awu! Zhou Mo had noticed Guiwu flying towards him just now. Before he had time to face Guiwu, he saw Bai Mei approaching from behind the ghost martial artist. "Master Guiwu! Master Guiwu!" Everyone shouted worriedly, but there was no one who could stop the imminent attack. This series of events happened in just a few breaths. Bai Mei's piercingly cold attack had already fallen on Guiwu. Bang, bang, bang. A loud sound of collision suddenly rang out. In the air, there seemed to be an explosion of air waves. The surging profound waves were flowing wave after wave. The entire dense forest, the broken branches of trees and grass, were all sent flying into the sky. Bang! Another powerful, profound wave fell. Shortly after, a figure was blasted away by the Xian wave. When the figure landed, he violently coughed out a large mouthful of blood. That cough, it was a woman's voice. The one who was sent flying was not Master Guiwu. Yan Xiaoyi and the others were a little stunned, looking incredulously at Bai Mei, who had fallen to the ground with a twisted face and was vomiting blood. What was going on? The profound wave, under the hurricane, gradually dispersed. Guiwu's figure was also revealed. He stood where he was unscathed. Master Guiwu! Their hearts skipped a few beats. Seeing that Guiwu was unscathed, they all breathed a sigh of relief. Guiwu looked at his hands, and then at Bai Mei, who had been sent flying. He slightly knitted his brows, just as he was about to open his mouth to say something. When he turned his head, he saw that the attention of those people was all focused on him. The black-robed people behind him obviously noticed this and launched an attack together. His face darkened as he shouted, "Do you think you can be distracted on the battlefield?" As his voice fell, he raised the long sword in his hand and threw it at those people. The sword wave caused by the long sword forced the black-robed men to retreat a few steps. They immediately came back to their senses and rejoined the battle. "Oh!" Bai Mei groaned in pain and crawled up from the ground. She clutched her chest with one hand. He quickly touched his face with one hand to make sure that his face hadn't fallen off. "It's her." The voice of the palace master of the Netherworld Palace suddenly became tense. He raised his head and looked at the sky without blinking. "Her?" Bai Mei furrowed her brows and immediately looked in the direction of the palace master's gaze. "That little bitch? Is she finally willing to show up?" He raised his head. The disgust and hatred on her face froze on her face. On the horizon, a huge white nine-tailed fox stood in the air, and on top of the nine-tailed fox sat two figures intimately embracing each other. The girl sitting in front was wearing a blazing red dress, like a blooming fire lotus. Along with the profound wave, her dress fluttered in the wind like a jumping flame. And behind her, with his arms around the girl's waist, was a man in purple with a cold expression, like an unattainable god, overflowing with youth and peerless elegance. Only when his gaze fell on the girl could one see the gentleness of his face. This scene, it was like a beautiful picture. Chapter 44:15. It's her. It's him. The two of them appeared. Those two figures appeared clearly in front of everyone's eyes. Bai Mei's face froze, slowly became distorted. Her 5 fingers subconsciously clenched tightly into a ball, whereas the palace lord of Seclusion Palace stared at the sky without blinking. The body under the black robe was tightly stretched, as though there was some kind of emotion surging about to explode. "It's Qing Luo. Overlord. Overlord really brought Qing Luo back." The few of them were so agitated that their eyes turned red. All of them stared at the sky, as though they wanted to confirm that the two of them were real and not an illusion. A dong sound was heard. Repeat 600 words. Change within 20 minutes. Moi in the air. As though there was an explosion, the surging profound wave flowed wave after wave. The entire dense forest, the broken branches of the trees, the grass, all flew up into the sky. Bam! Another strong, profound wave landed. Following that, they saw a figure being blasted away by that profound wave. When that figure landed on the ground, he violently coughed out a mouthful of blood. That cough, it was a woman's voice, the one who was sent flying. was not Master Gui Wu. Yan Xiao Yi and the rest were in a daze, as they looked in disbelief at Bai Mei, who fell onto the ground, with a twisted face, spitting out blood. What was going on? The profound wave, under the hurricane, slowly dispersed. Gui Wu's figure also appeared. He stood on the same spot and scathed. Master Gui Wu. The few of their hearts skipped a few beats, but on seeing Gui Wu safe and sound, they heaved a sigh of relief. Gui Wu looked at his own hands, and then at Bai Mei, who flew out. He frowned slightly, just as he was about to say something. When he turned his head, he saw those few people's attention, all focused on him. The black-robed men obviously noticed this, as they all launched their attacks. His face sunk as he shouted sternly, "Do you think water on the battlefield allows you to be distracted?" As his voice fell, he raised the long sword in his hand and directly threw it towards those few people. The long sword stirred up a sword wave, causing those black-robed men to retreat a few steps. The few of them immediately regained their senses as they rejoined the battle. "Oh!" Bai Mei groaned in pain and crawled up from the ground. She clutched her chest with one hand. He quickly touched his face with one hand to make sure that his face hadn't fallen off. "It's her." The voice of the palace master of the Netherworld Palace suddenly became tense. He raised his head and looked at the sky without blinking. "Her?" Bai Mei furrowed her brows and immediately looked in the direction of the palace master's gaze. "That little bitch? Is she finally willing to show up?" He raised his head. The disgust and hatred on her face froze on her face. On the horizon, a huge white nine-tailed fox stood in the air. On top of the nine-tailed fox sat two figures who were embracing each other intimately. The girl sitting at the front was dressed in a blazing red dress that looked like a blooming fire lotus. Her dress fluttered in the wind along with the profound waves, looking like an excited flame. The girl sitting at the front was dressed in a blazing red dress that looked like a blooming fire lotus. Her dress fluttered in the wind along with the profound waves, looking like an excited flame. Behind her was a purple-clothed man with his arms around the girl's waist. His face was cold, like an unattainable god. He was overflowing with youth and peerless beauty. Behind him was a purple-clothed man with his arms around the girl's waist. His face was cold, like an unattainable god. He was overflowing with youth and peerless beauty. Only when his gaze fell on the girl. This scene, it was like a beautiful picture. End of this chapter. Chapter 44:16. Mo Xian's eyes were calm. So calm that she couldn't tell what he was thinking. Or perhaps, to him, Bai Mei was just a passerby without any sense of existence. She couldn't arouse any unnecessary emotions from him. That cold gaze made Bai Mei's heart ache. The malevolence and distortion on her face uncontrollably stretched out. She wasn't willing to reveal any ugly look in front of Mo Xian, but looking at the young lady, who was smiling like a flower by Mo Xian's side, she couldn't control her emotions. Bai Mei. Mo Xian's voice was very calm, even if it was just a form of address. Bai Mei's heart couldn't help but soar. She knew she loved Mo Xian. Since the first time she saw Mo Xian by her sister's side, she had fallen deeply in love with that man who was younger than her. His every move, he could easily affect her everything. Bai Mei's eyes stared greedily at Mo Xian, as though she wanted to imprint him deeply into her mind. Her sentimental gaze was somewhat scorching. Tis Yi Qing Luo clicked her tongue as she leaned into Mo Xian's arms and raised her little head. "Ma Xian is really popular." That affectionate gaze, did it hook you? Mo Xian pinched her waist as he bent down to whisper into her ear. "Is it worth for you to ask such a question to an unimportant person?" His words paused slightly as his husky voice revealed a faint smile, but Lil Luo can try to look at me affectionately to see what the consequences will be. That husky voice, between the words, there was a faint magnetism, Lightly beside her ear, he breathed out hoarsely. Inexplicably, it was tainted with a kind of ambiguous atmosphere. Yi Qingluo's cheeks flushed slightly. She raised her head and stared at Dmo Xian unhappily. Her raised little hand even hammered twice on his chest. Dmo Xian's whisper earlier, although it wasn't loud. But it was clearly transmitted into Bai Mei's ears. The 4 words, unimportant. Like a clap of thunder, it heavily exploded in Bai Mei's mind, especially when he saw Yi Qingluo and Dmo Xian, acting as though no one else was around. The flames of jealousy burning in his chest could not be suppressed. Yi Qingluo, don't be too complacent. Do you think you'll be safe and sound? Bai Mei sneered as she raised her head and looked at the lovey-dovey couple in the sky. A thick black mist surged around her. The swirling mist exuded a nauseating chill. Bai Mei. Dmo Xian merely shot a glance at the thick black Yin Qi. Your sister wants to see you. The expression on Bai Mei's sinister face froze for a moment. However, it was only for an instant. She smiled charmingly and said, My sister? Do I still have a sister now? She doesn't even think of me as her sister. She sneered again and added a bit of mockery to her smile. What? Even until now, you still want to use kinship to influence me? Dmo Xian, do you think? A sister who can personally send me to the heavenly prison, will I still want her? Towards Bai Mei's mockery, Dmo Xian remained expressionless, until Bai Mei finished her mockery. He then replied with a faint, oh, and continued, which means you don't intend to meet your sister and don't intend to go back. Hurry up and read the latest updates. Download address. Phone reading. Chapter 44:17. Bai Mei's fingers suddenly clenched tightly. She clenched her fists tightly, just as Dmo Xian had lost his patience and was waiting for her reply. Suddenly, she raised her hand and covered her lips as she started giggling. That smile was gorgeous beyond compare, but her brows were incomparably gaudy. Overlord. Her voice was exceptionally seductive, with a hint of bewitchment. Kinship indeed has no way to soften my heart, but if Overlord is willing to give me love, perhaps you can let me let go. Such daring words. The entire dense forest fell into a strange silence. Bai Mei giggled delicately and even threw flirtatious glances. Apparently, she had already given up on herself. Bai Mei. Suddenly, a clear and melodious voice interrupted Bai Mei's laughter. Bai Mei's laughter paused as she looked towards the direction of the voice. Her vision turned black. Something was coming towards her. She had yet to react in time. That thing was plastered on her face. The sticky, warm thing slid down along her face, and more than half of it slid directly into her mouth. A fishy stench and that indescribable taste in her mouth instantly made Bai Mei collapse. She screamed. While spitting on the thing in her mouth, she raised her hand, trying to wipe the thing off her face. Above her head floated a young lady's leisurely laughter. Be careful, if you wipe too hard, this face of yours will not be able to keep. Bai Mei's raised hand instantly froze. That fishy stench. It made her stomach roll. This is the most precious. Sacred beast's feces. Eat more of it. It will strengthen your body. No need to thank me. Yi Qingluo continued with a beaming smile. Sacred beast. Feces. These 3 words made Bai Mei's face turn pale in a swoosh. Instantly her stomach churned, and she started to vomit in big mouthfuls. Bai Mei, my man, is he someone whom you can dream about? Have a good taste of this precious sacred beast's feces and calm down. Yi Qingluo's voice suddenly became piercingly cold and gloomy. Her words were filled with warning. Her, flirting with her man in front of her? Eat a mouthful of shit and suppress that unrealistic fantasy. Bai Mei covered her mouth as she raised her head and stared furiously at Yi Qingluo. Something sticky slid from her face to her body. An even more fishy smell assaulted her nostrils. A palm-sized bird was still flapping its wings, circling around the nine-tailed fox, flapping back and forth. Ah, Yi Qing Luo, just you wait. Bai Mei was flustered and exasperated. The stench and stickiness on her body made her feel so disgusted that she almost collapsed. She threw down a sentence. His whole body was like an arrow released from a bow, rushing into the dense forest. Childish or not. Qi Yan gave Yi Qing Luo a supercilious look. If its poop was placed in the beast clan, it would be worshipped. Now, Yi Qing Luo actually used it to disgust another lady. Qi Yan felt that it was really a waste of heaven's gifts. Yi Qing Luo leaned into Dmo Xian's arms and smiled wickedly. So what if I'm childish? As long as it works. Her smile suddenly disappeared as she looked down at a certain place. Her gaze was very calm. Looking at that figure, it was as if she was looking at a stranger. Little Nine, go down. Yi Qing Luo patted the nine-tailed fox. After Little Nine landed, Dmo Xian carried Yi Qing Luo and walked down. The person opposite them was the person whom Yi Qing Luo was looking at earlier. Palace Lord. Of secluded palace. Update speed is the fastest. Hurry up and read. Download address. Mobile phone reading. Chapter 44:18. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled slightly as she spoke calmly. Do you want to continue fighting or get lost? Her arrogance was extremely arrogant the moment the young lady appeared. The eyes of the palace master of the Netherworld Palace were all focused on the girl, until the young lady walked in front of him. Their four eyes met at a close distance. He then regained his senses. Luckily, the black robe covered his face. It also covered his panicked expression at this moment. The Overlord is here. This battle has no meaning anymore. He laughed bitterly. His tone was filled with some unfathomable emotions. He really admired Yi Qing Luo, under the circumstances where she obviously had no profound energy. She even dared to provoke him in such a brazen manner, only because she was wholeheartedly trusting the man behind her, wasn't she? A lady like Yi Qing Luo. She was able to entrust everything she had to a man without any worries. This meant that she really loved that man. This knowledge made the heavy pressure in his heart even more unbearable. Towards the palace, Lord's concession, Yi Qing Luo didn't say another word. Holding Dmo Xian's arm, she walked towards her brother. The palace lord suddenly chased 2 steps forward. Yi Qing Luo. There was a hint of urgency in his voice. Yi Qing Luo stopped in her tracks, and when she turned back, the glint in between her brows was calm and indifferent, as though looking at him he was really a stranger. Such a strange feeling. It made him feel that it was difficult to breathe. You want to leave Heaven Cliff Ridge? He suppressed the discomfort in his heart, making his voice sound normal. Yi Qing Luo raised her brows. Why? Want to fight? Earlier. By Mei's words, don't you understand what she meant? He clenched his fists tightly. After leaving Heaven Cliff Ridge, even if the Overlord is around, he won't be able to protect you. Do you know that? Yi Qing Luo's lips curled up slightly as she looked suspiciously at the palace lord. What do you mean? He opened his mouth as though he wanted to say something, but his gaze swept towards the other side, at the hundreds of black-robed men. He threw a glance at Yi Qing Luo. His tight black robe fluttered as a strong gust of wind blew wildly. A terrifying qi wave instantly enveloped Yi Qing Luo and Dmo Xian, but in an instant, he had already lost sight of the 3 of them. Yan Xiao, Yi, and the rest immediately jogged up and stood at the place where Dmo Xian was standing earlier, looking around. Where is he? That secluded darkness palace lord. Where did he bring Qing Luo and the Overlord to? Master Gui Wu, what should we do? Qing Luo and the Overlord. They looked at each other, their faces filled with worry and nervousness. Gui Wu's face was expressionless as he said indifferently, Di Zun is here. It's fine. The air wave that attacked the palace master of secluded Darkness Palace, Dmo Xian, did not stop her. After the qi wave dispersed, the three of them had already arrived at a relatively deep part of the forest. What are you trying to say? Yi Qing Luo looked around, and there wasn't anyone else around. Did you think that by hiding here, the real mastermind of secluded Darkness Palace would not find out? No. The palace master of Gloomy Palace lowered his head. His black robe covered all his emotions. Yi Qing Luo didn't say another word. She didn't know if he believed him, or if he was still suspicious. The palace master of Gloomy Palace's expression sunk slightly, but the words that came out of his mouth were unusually gentle. No matter if you believe me or not, I just don't want to see you. Get into trouble. The fastest update. Hurry up and read it. Download address. Cell phone reading. Chapter 4419. Finishing his words, perhaps he was afraid that Yi Qing Luo would ridicule him, or perhaps Dmo Xian's cold gaze was somewhat penetrating. He continued, the Heaven Realm has now gathered people from all the major forces, and they all want to obtain you. Get her. Yi Qing Luo frowned slightly. Get me? In order to prevent any accidents from happening on the leaderboard, the secret of your profound jade heart has been exposed. Those ambitious people all want to get your profound jade heart. Yi Qing Luo exclaimed, Profound jade heart! From Nirvana realm to Earth realm and then to Heaven realm, what secluded Darkness Palace wanted from her? It had always been this profound jade heart, and this body of hers. It was said to be some profound jade heart's container. The person behind secluded Darkness Palace actually spread this news? Or the other party was confident that among so many people he had 100% chance of getting her? Yes, and not only about the profound jade heart, but also secluded Darkness Palace. Lord muttered to himself for a moment as a strange expression surfaced on his face. And also, the whereabouts of the Divine Emperor's tomb is also on you. Divine Emperor's tomb. What does that person want to do? Yi Qing Luo couldn't understand. Secluded Darkness Palace. Lord shook his head. This matter is very complicated. Master doesn't trust me, and I don't know much. He paused and continued, regarding the whereabouts of the Divine Emperor's tomb on you, and the news of the profound jade heart were all spread from Bone Lord. As for the reason, it seems that Master schemed against Bone Lord. Bone Lord is your uncle's identity in Heaven Realm. So the moment this was said, no matter if it's true or false, those ambitious forces all want to give it a try. Especially, Huangfu family also revealed your relationship with the Overlord. Everyone is guessing that the Overlord is with you because he has ulterior motives. While he was saying this sentence, his eyes widened. He deliberately raised his head and looked at Dmo Xian. But most of their attention was still focused on Yi Qing Luo. It was as if he wanted to see something on her face that he wanted to see. However, the young lady frowned. Bone Lord? Barbaric Bloodbone King? How does he know about the Divine Phoenix profound jade heart? And what about the Divine Emperor's tomb? What's going on? From the start to the end, he had never used a suspicious gaze to look at Dmo Xian. Even after hearing what he had said, she still couldn't help but laugh. None of them doubted Dmo Xian. Just how much trust did he have in Dmo Xian? The palace master of the Abyss Palace lowered his eyes slightly. He was secretly amused by his actions. He felt that his probing was simply asking to be humiliated. It's not surprising that the barbaric Bloodbone King knows about you. Dmo Xian lightly patted the young lady's back, but he shouldn't easily say these things that will cause you trouble. It should be the same as what he said, being schemed by that person from the secluded palace. What does that person want to do? Yi Qing Luo pursed her lips, raised her hand, and pressed on her heart. She was very clear how many people wanted this divine phoenix, profound heart jade. From the dark organization to the Abyss Palace, are trying to think of a way. If this news were to spread out, the danger she faced was far more serious than she had imagined, especially in another. News about the divine emperor's tomb. Master's motive, I'm not sure. The palace master of the Abyss Palace's voice sounded a little desolate. Hurry up and read the latest update. Download address. Phone reading. Chapter 44:20. Yi Qing Luo raised her eyes and looked at him before she opened her mouth. She saw the palace lord's line of sight suddenly turn towards Dmo Xian, even though he was shrouded in a black robe. She could clearly feel that from his gaze there was an aura of creating trouble. Immediately after, he scoffed lightly. His tone was obviously gloating, but I'm clear of one thing. Regarding the news of your profound jade heart and the divine emperor's tomb, Zhu Wuxian is also aware of it. It was also because of this problem that Zhu Wuxian and Master had a huge fight and the cooperation between the both of them broke down. Later on, Zhu Wuxian left the palace lord. He obviously intentionally mentioned Zhu Wuxian at this moment, just to make things difficult for Dmo Xian. Looking at Dmo Xian's calm and indifferent face, there were some slight changes in his expression. He then felt his heart was balanced. When Yi Qing Luo heard that, her expression congealed slightly. She raised her head and looked at the man next to her. In this way, Zhu Wuxian brought me away from the Gu residence, and imprisoned me here is actually to protect me. The enchantment that he had set up around the residence was not to prevent her from leaving, but to seal her presence in case anyone tracked her existence. No wonder. Zhu Wuxian had been forcefully not allowing her to leave the residence. No matter what the reason is, Dmo Xian's large palm directly covered Yi Qing Luo's eyes. In your mind, you cannot think of other men. Yi Qing Luo hugged his hand, which covered her eyes. Yes, yes, yes. Don't think. In my mind, there's only you. That tone was as though he was coaxing a child. Dmo Xian pinched her nose. The palace lord of the palace lord stared at this blissful and sweet scene. His 5 fingers were about to break. What kind of timing was this? They could still take the opportunity to be lovey-dovey. He felt that it was glaring to his eyes as he raised his hand and placed it by his lips, coughing hard. You guys temporarily hide in Tinya Ridge for a period of time. Once you walk out of Tinya Ridge, based on your current ability, how are you going to protect that profound jade heart in your body? Indeed, this was Heaven Realm, not Nirvana Realm, not Earth Realm. Anyone here stood up. Their abilities were the strongest among the strong, even with Dmo Xian's protection. But, driven by ambition and benefits, there would still be people who would want to try. What if he succeeded? He had obtained the divine phoenix, profound heart jade. Find out the whereabouts of the divine emperor's tomb. They would be able to surpass venerable sovereigns and stand above them. He might be able to guard against one, but he wouldn't be able to guard against a second. Was this the goal of the person behind the scenes of the Palace of Darkness? It seemed that when the sandpiper and the clam fight, the fisherman benefits. During this period of time, almost all the major forces have been searching for your whereabouts. The palace master of the Netherworld Palace saw that the two of them did not speak for a long time. He pursed his thin lips and pulled down his cloak, covering himself completely. The Tinya Ridge is the most dangerous place in the Heaven Realm. Very few people go there. You can hide here as long as you can. I guess this place isn't safe anymore. Yi Qing Luo pouted. Bai Mei had just left. It was definitely not just to clean up the feces on his body. Instead, he had gone to get reinforcements. No matter how dangerous the Tinya Ridge was, under the absolute benefit, there would still be people who stepped into the Tinya Ridge. Everyone was holding on to a fluke in their hearts. The palace lord of the Netherworld Palace also knew who Yi Qing Luo was referring to. He gathered the black robe on his body and lowered his voice. That's all I have to say. I'll return to the Palace of Darkness first. Hurry up and read the latest updates. Download address. Cell phone reading. Chapter 44:21. Wait. Before he left, Yi Qing Luo suddenly spoke out that no matter if the news you told me is true or false, I still have to thank you. The body of the person under the cloak suddenly stiffened. The pressure around him seemed to have sunk a little. Towards Yi Qing Luo's thanks, he totally didn't feel any joy. What he wanted was never Yi Qing Luo's gratitude. Furthermore, Yi Qing Luo's words was obviously filled with distrust towards him. Even if he had to take the risk of being discovered by his master, he told her everything that he knew. She still didn't trust herself. The palace lord of Seclusion Palace shut his eyes heavily, and when he opened his mouth, his voice was extremely tight and cold. I just don't wish for you to get hurt, that's all. His words fell. He had already rushed into the dense forest, his figure disappearing. Yi Qing Luo looked at his departing figure, still in a daze. A large palm clasped her head, pressing her into his arms. You're touched just like this? Still looking at my back view reluctantly? That voice was magnetic and deep. She couldn't hear any anger, but instead heard a hint of alluring huskiness. If you want to chase after me, then hurry up and chase after me. That sour tone made the young lady's lips unknowingly curled into a smile. Yi Qing Luo backhanded, grabbed that large palm, clasping her head, as she said smilingly, You said to let me chase, let go of me. Hugging so tightly, which part of him looked like he was asking her to chase after him. You really want to chase. The man's voice suddenly deepened, suddenly clasping her lower jaw, lifting her face up, making eye contact with him. That man's peerless, handsome face was imprinted in her pupils at a close distance. His face wasn't an angry expression. His thin lips curled into a slight arc, revealing a tinge of devilishness. Yi Qing Luo. Even though she knew it was a trap, Yi Qing Luo still had no backbone as she indulged in this trap. Her hands hooked onto Dmo Xian's neck, her legs crossed around his waist, placing all her weight on the man. How would I dare to think? So, you're saying that you don't dare to, not that you don't want to. A certain jealous man took advantage of the faulty wording to argue. Yi Qing Luo expressed that this jealous man was really hard to coax when he pestered endlessly, but there was no other way. After all, this was her wife. Apui, her future husband. He still had to coax her. The girl's smile became brighter and brighter as she rubbed her face against the man's body. Why would I chase him? Why would I chase after him? What kind of nonsense are you thinking about? A certain jealous man naturally accepted the girl's kiss. Those kisses were like feathers that tickled his heart. On the surface, he still pretended to be jealous. My little Luo is very popular. Look, one or two of them, in order to protect you, they can even disregard their own lives. A partner who gave up on working with you to lock you up in this safe place. One risking his life to tell you information harmful to you. Dmo Xian's voice paused slightly. His voice was even colder than before. He lowered his head as his chin rested on the girl's shoulder. His thin lips were very close to her ear. Don't you feel touched, little Luo? Yi Qing Luo. This might be a suicide question. Her Xian's vinegar jar had been overturned. That would be an earth-shattering battle. Chapter 44:22. Yi Qing Luo's hands, which were hugging his neck, froze when she met the man's eyes, which were full of charm and elegance. Between her eyes, there seemed to be a resplendent ray of light flashed past. She suddenly, both her hands hooked tightly onto the man's neck. Her pink lips curled into a coquettish arc. Xian is jealous. That enchanting smile, that sweet voice was intentionally coquettish. It successfully made the man's gaze unnaturally shifted to the two sides. Yi Qing Luo's long and narrow eyes rippled with a faint teasing smile. Her slender fingers circled around the man's chest bit by bit, drawing circles. When Xian asked this question, I also want to know what Xian was thinking about. The young lady's bright, smiling face was like the scorching sun imprinted in his eyes. DMO Xian seemed to be teased by the young lady's words, as he felt somewhat helpless. Locking the young lady's lower jaw, he suddenly lowered his head and fiercely bit on her lips, before he hugged her tightly in his arms. I'm very unhappy. I know. Yi Qing Luo buried her head in his chest as her little head rubbed. When I saw Bai Mei, I was very unhappy too. Even if he knew, DMO Xian wouldn't give Bai Mei another look. She would still be unhappy. She had the impulse not to let DMO Xian and Bai Mei speak another word, because she knew that Bai Mei had a different way of thinking towards DMO Xian. This was like, DMO Xian didn't wish for her and Zhu Wuxian, or the palace lord of the secluded palace, to have too much contact. Because he knew, no matter if it was Zhu Wuxian or the palace lord of the secluded palace, no matter how many wrong things they had done, but their feelings towards her were serious. Yi Qing Luo could empathize with him, so she understood DMO Xian's current feelings. She raised her head from DMO Xian's arms, as her lips curled into a sweet and warm smile. But, Xian, no matter if I will be touched by what they have done, I like your heart. This point will never ever change. I like you. No one can replace your position in my heart. The young lady's voice was firm and sincere. After saying that, she tiptoed and took the initiative to kiss the man's lips. A trace of tenderness flashed past DMO Xian's eyes. The unhappiness in his heart vanished into thin air because of the young girl's words and her kiss. He wrapped his arms around the girl's slender waist. He turned the tables. It went even deeper and swallowed the young girl whole. Cough, 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 cough. A few awkward coughs sounded from the side. He coughed. The two of them, who were hugging each other tightly, immediately separated and looked towards the source of the coughing. He saw a few figures were standing not far away. They were blushing and looking at them in embarrassment. Yi Qing Luo's face flushed red. Why are you all here? It's not that we want to disturb you, but it's not a good time to be intimate. Yan Xiao Yi's tone was full of ridicule. Yi Qing Luo grabbed DMO Xian's arm as she strode towards them. You'd better give me a reasonable explanation, lest I beat you to death. Yan Xiao Yi hurriedly stuffed him into Qiao Jin's arms, then pushed the person in front of her. That person who was pushed out stood together with Gui Wu, an old man dressed in glittering gold, dressed like a nouveau riche. Especially that glittering gold robe. The huge gold ingot was extremely eye-catching. Yi Qing Luo didn't need to look at his face to know who this person was. End of this chapter. Chapter 44:23. God Thief, why are you here? Wasn't this the nouveau riche God Thief? Wasn't God Thief in Nirvana Realm? Why did he come to Heaven Realm? Why did she feel that everyone she met in Nirvana Realm had all come to Heaven Realm? Didn't it mean that every realm had its own set of laws? Weren't they 5 ghosts a little too mysterious? Somehow it felt as though the few of them could travel freely in any realm. Was this a tour? I'm worried about you, so I specially came over. Ghost Thief pounced over quickly. Before he could pounce forward, he was flung aside by DMO Xian's sleeve. Yi Qing Luo looked at Ghost Thief, who was rubbing the gold ingot embroidered on his body with a face full of grievance, and her lips twitched. You came alone. Isn't it enough to have me? Why do you still need that bunch of old men? Ghost Thief waved his hand. Then he sized up the 2 people he wanted to use. Just now, We saw that kid from the Palace of Darkness escape from here with heavy injuries. He even brought a large group of people from the Palace of Darkness away. We thought that something big had happened to you. I didn't expect that after you guys injured someone. You're still being so lovey-dovey here. Serious injuries? Yi Qingluo went into a slight daze as she raised her head and exchanged glances with Dmo Xian. She could roughly guess the reason why the Lord of Secluded Palace would do this. The three of them disappeared in front of the Secluded Palace's disciples. If there wasn't any fight, then they would leave unscathed. Those Secluded Palace's disciples would definitely be suspicious. He was really ruthless towards himself. Secluded Palace is not the main point. Gui Wu's cold voice interrupted Ghost Thief's nonsense. Ghost Thief just brought news now. The news that you have a divine phoenix profound heart jade in your body and the whereabouts of the divine emperor's tomb has spread throughout the upper realm. We can't leave Tianya Ridge for the time being. Awu. Zhou Mo's eyes widened as he stared at Gui Wu in astonishment. You seem to... This is the first time you've said such a long sentence. Everyone rolled their eyes. Kitty Lee scratched him with her claws. Is this the time to be surprised? Can you look at the occasion? Gui Wu didn't pay any attention to Zhou Mo. His gaze quietly looked towards Yi Qingluo. Right now, a large number of people have already gathered in the Heaven Realm. They want to obtain your profound heart jade and the whereabouts of the divine emperor's tomb. I know. Yi Qingluo nodded. It looked like Holy Pirate had come to the Heaven World because of this news. In other words, this news was not only spread throughout the upper realm. Anyone with a little bit of power and influence would have received this news. Right now, she was probably a bottle of water that had appeared in the desert. She was in high demand, and everyone wanted to have her. What do you intend to do? Gui Wu didn't ask why Yi Qingluo knew about this matter in advance. Yi Qingluo's slender fingers stroked her chin. But Mei has escaped, so she won't be able to stay in Tianya Ridge for too long. Qingluo, no matter what decision you make, we swear to follow you till death. Yes, we will all stand on your side. Fortunately, we came at this time. You won't be alone. The few people in the world group opened their mouths with grave expressions, swearing their determination. It was also indirectly stopping Yi Qingluo's decision to let them leave Heaven Realm first. Since they had come to Heaven Realm, they also knew about the danger that Yi Qingluo had experienced. How could they possibly turn a blind eye to it? How could they leave Heaven Realm in peace? Chapter 44:24. Those sonorous and forceful words were like an invisible energy pouring into Yi Qingluo's heart. The lines on her face became gentle. You've chased me all the way to the Heaven Realm. How can I bear to let you leave? She let go of Dmo Xian and walked towards Yan Shaoyi and the rest. Even if you want to leave, I won't let you leave. We're a team. If I'm in trouble, of course you can't escape. Seeing Yan Shaoyi and the rest appearing in front of her, Yi Qingluo didn't ask why or how they came. She knew it better than anyone else. This group of young men and ladies, in order to chase up to her footsteps to fight alongside her, had expended a lot of effort. Qingluo, Yan Shaoyi and the rest hugged Yi Qingluo. Ever since they parted in Nirvana Realm, they hadn't interacted well for a long time. The last time they finally met, it was on such an occasion. They were reduced to the Secluded Palace, threatening Yi Qingluo's job, before they had the chance to feel the joy of reunion. Once again, they were facing separation. Perhaps he knew this. Dmo Xian's vinegar jar didn't overturn. Ghost Thief also rarely quietened down. Over there was brotherly love. Gui Wu glanced at the children and looked at Dmo Xian. Let's have a chat. Dmo Xian retracted his gaze from Yi Qingluo. At the moment when he retracted his gaze, the pampering and tenderness in his eyes also dissipated in that instance. Gui Wu turned around and walked towards another direction. Dmo Xian followed slowly. After walking for a short distance, the brotherly love's playful sounds became softer. Gui Wu then stopped and looked at Dmo Xian. This matter, what do you intend to do? What do you think? Dmo Xian asked back. Once the divine phoenix profound heart jade leaves her body, it will lose its effect. Gui Wu said indifferently. This point many people don't know, and even if this point is made public, I'm afraid no one will believe it. Dmo Xian's dark red thin lips suddenly curled. His gaze was a little chilly. How can this lord be sure? Towards Lil Luo. There's no disloyalty. I thought you know. Gui Wu replied calmly. Dmo Xian chuckled. That's right. If he wasn't clear about it, then he wouldn't have allowed Gui Wu and the others to appear beside Yiqing Luo. He would turn a blind eye to it. It was only because Gui Wu and the rest had no ill intentions towards Yiqing Luo. Furthermore, their existence was able to protect Yiqing Luo. Yes, they were by Yiqing Luo's side in order to protect her. Or, to be more precise, it was to protect Yiqing Luo's secret. But now this matter had already reached the point where everyone knew about it. In order to protect Yiqing Luo's secret, would the ghost martial artist do something to hurt Yiqing Luo? A little of the divine phoenix profound heart jade, and Gui Wu's eyes darkened as he said word by word. If the clues regarding the divine emperor's tomb were to be made public, the world would be thrown into chaos. When Dmo Xian heard that, there wasn't a hint of panic on his face. His eyes were filled with laziness. His long eyelashes were slightly fluttering, as a silhouette flashed past his eyes. His thin lips curled slightly. His smile was calm and extremely indifferent, whether the world is in chaos, destroyed or not. This lord doesn't care. As long as Lil Luo is safe and sound, that's enough. Chapter 44:25. Gui Wu's brows congealed slightly. He quietly looked at Dmo Xian's face and suddenly chuckled. But if things really happen, I believe you will absolutely not stand idly by. The corners of Dmo Xian's lips only curled upwards, smiling but not saying a word. If you don't want anything to happen to Yiqing Luo, then guard her secret well. Gui Wu didn't continue to talk to Dmo Xian. Finishing this sentence, he walked towards the crowd. Ghost Thief leaned forward and used an ambiguous gaze to wander between him and Dmo Xian. What are you and the Overlord talking about? Do you still have to be so secretive? Gui Wu glanced at him and ignored him. Did you tell him about our plan? Ghost Bandit asked, following behind him. Gui Wu's footsteps suddenly halted as he glanced sideways at Ghost Thief. No. Then what are you whispering about? Ghost Thief rolled his eyes. I thought you really have the guts to personally tell the Overlord our decision, placing Yiqing Luo by our side, or rather, handing over the secret of the divine emperor's tomb to us. These words, will you tell the Overlord? Gui Wu looked at Ghost Thief expressionlessly. Ghost Thief's mind imagined the consequences if he said these words to the Overlord. His whole body trembled a little. All right, he really didn't dare. With the Overlord around, he will protect Yiqing Luo more diligently than us. Gui Wu no longer cared about Ghost Thief as he strode back into the crowd. Yiqing Luo, who was hugging with her brothers, saw Gui Wu returning. Dmo Xian followed closely behind. She bounced towards Dmo Xian. The man naturally opened his arms and caught her. What are you discussing? Yiqing Luo's arms wrapped tightly around his waist as she raised her chin and looked at him. How to protect the secret on you. Dmo Xian tapped her little nose. Those people should be rushing into Chenya Ridge soon. Are you afraid? Not afraid. Yiqing Luo smiled sweetly. Between her brows there was a flowing brilliance. With you around, I'm not afraid of anything. It seems that in your heart, I am an invincible existence. Dmo Xian chuckled lightly as he caressed the young lady's face. Yi Qing Luo nodded her head vigorously. Giving me so much pressure. Aren't you afraid that I'll run away? Dmo Xian pinched her face. Yi Qing Luo smiled as she shook her head. The space between her brows were like bright stars. You can't bear to. Dmo Xian laughed out loud, as his arms held the young lady tightly in his embrace. The people around him. For some inexplicable reason, he was forced to eat dog food. Could he still play happily? The atmosphere had also eased up a lot. Yi Qing Luo let go of Dmo Xian's hand as she surveyed the surrounding people, and her lips curled into a faint smile. If those people want to barge into Heaven Cliff Ridge, I'm afraid they will need a period of time. Before this, I hope that you can help me guard those people. I want to try to break the forbidden curse that Blood-Bone Barbaric King had placed in my body. With her profound grade sealed, it was really inconvenient for her. The Blood-Bone Barbarian King's original intention was probably to let her live peacefully in the Heaven Realm as the first miss of the Gu residence. In order to prevent her from escaping, or in other words, to prevent her aura from being too unique in the Heaven Realm and attracting the attention of people with ulterior motives. So, the profound grade in her body was sealed. But things had already developed to such a stage. She had to make herself stronger. She could not always rely on the people around her, to protect her, to worry for her. She was also strong enough to protect herself. Hurry up and read the latest update. Download address. Phone reading. Chapter 44:26. However, things had already developed to this point. She had to make herself stronger. She couldn't always rely on the people around her to protect her and worry about her. She was also strong enough to protect herself. What do you want to do? Long Yunjian pursed his lips as his eyes darkened. All the energy in your body has been sealed. I can't sense your aura even if I'm standing here. Long Yunjian had already made a contract with her. As Yi Qing Luo's war pet, there should be a special connection between him and Yi Qing Luo. But even though Yi Qing Luo was standing right in front of him, he was unable to sense Yi Qing Luo's presence. Exactly. Kitty, Li also can't sense you. Kitty Li puffed up her cheeks as her spirited eyes were filled with mist, looking at Yi Qing Luo angrily and worriedly. Now, no matter if it's the profound grade or the spiritual connection, they're all sealed. Yi Qing Luo smiled. So I have to think of a way to undo this spell first. Don't force yourself. Long Yunjian hesitated for a moment. His azure eyes were filled with worry. Yi Qing Luo hugged Dmo Xian's arm. With Xian around, all of you can be at ease. But for you, the venom in your body has not been completely removed. If you feel any discomfort, remember to tell Ziqing. Don't force yourself. The few of them gave each other a few more words of advice. Yi Qing Luo then pulled Dmo Xian along as she headed towards the inner region of Heaven Cliff Ridge. Gue Wu and Gue Bandit stayed where they were. The dangers of the Horizon Ridge were indeed as rumored. The slightest carelessness could very well cost them their lives. However, she had her golden thighs. Fearless, Yi Qing Luo nestled in Dmo Xian's arms, jumping left and right, not knowing how long she had been jumping for. Dmo Xian then stopped moving. Yi Qing Luo squirmed out from his arms. In front of him was a huge lake that would strike fear into the hearts of anyone who looked at it. It was like a double-sided mirror that had been cut in half from the middle, and the flow of the mirror made one dizzy. Violent energy waves surged on the surface of the lake. The surroundings were still filled with a lush forest that stretched as far as the eye could see. The sky was dark and not a single ray of light could be seen. It was not strange for there to be a dense forest, but this lake was really too strange. Yi Qing Luo looked at the lake in puzzlement. Double-sided, illusory heart lake. Dmo Xian rubbed her head. When I was on my way to Tianya Ridge to look for you, I passed by this place. Passing by, This place was in a completely different direction from Zhu Wuxin's mansion, hidden in the horizon ridge. Did he search the entire Tianya Ridge? It was no wonder that DMO Xian was so familiar with the path and walked straight to this place. Xian! Yi Qing Luo's heart ached as she circled his neck. Silly. DMO Xian could tell what Yi Qing Luo was thinking. He lowered his head and knocked his forehead against hers. Don't let your imagination run wild. The most important thing now is to remove the curse from your body. Yi Qing Luo pursed her lips as the hand around his neck tightened. You're always able to arrange my matters clearly. Earlier, it was DMO Xian who mentioned in her ear that he would first remove the curse in her body. He always knew exactly what she was thinking in her heart. She knew what she needed. Everyone only thought of protecting her, placing her in the safest position and accompanying her by her side. Only DMO Xian knew. Chapter 44:27. Xian, thank you. Yi Qing Luo's eyes were filled with a faint smile. Why are you thanking me? DMO Xian lowered his head and bit her lips. Go, I'll wait here for you to come back and thank me with your actions. Yi Qing Luo. He really didn't forget to tease her no matter what. Yi Qing Luo stared at DMO Xian. Then she shifted her gaze to the mirror-like lake that seemed to have been cut in half from the middle. Don't be afraid. I believe that with your willpower, you can definitely pass the test of the double-faced lake. DMO Xian gently stroked her hair. Xian's tone was very gentle. Even the fingers that were caressing her hair were so gentle. But Yi Qing Luo could tell. Xian's tone was very heavy. It seemed like he was more uncomfortable than anyone else to make this decision. Willpower. Did she need to use her willpower to conquer this lake? She raised her head slightly and held the man's big palm, turned around and planted a kiss on his lips. After that, she moved away and looked at the man's handsome face with a sweet smile. Wait for me. The words fell. She let go of DMO Xian's hand. She leaped. Her figure disappeared into the lake. She really didn't hesitate. Didn't she suspect that you are lying to her? At this moment, a woman's clear voice rang. In this quiet and lush forest, it was especially obvious. DMO Xian's eyes were filled with gentleness and pampering as he looked at the still lake with a smile on his lips. From DMO Xian's sleeves, a wisp of green smoke shadow floated out hazily. Gradually, it formed into a woman's figure. She looked at DMO Xian with a look of disgust. Look at your rippling look. I know you are in love with each other. Don't show it in front of me. DMO Xian slowly retracted his gaze and looked at the shadow beside him. What are you doing out here? Sigh, you have found a good girl. The woman sighed faintly. She has never doubted any of your words. This kind of trust, even I can't do it. DMO Xian only curled his thin lips and smiled. The woman's shadow seemed as if it would dissipate with a gust of wind. She slowly moved to the lakeside. Aren't you worried that she won't be able to come back? No. DMO Xian shook his head firmly. Baisu, her willpower is beyond your imagination. The woman. Baisu turned her head and looked at DMO Xian with a complicated gaze. Then do you know that if she comes out from there, it means that she will know the secret of her body. It's time for her to know. DMO Xian's vision fell onto the lake, as if he could see the young lady he loved deeply through the lake. His eyes were filled with gentleness. Even the lines on his face softened. She has too much on her shoulders, so she needs to grow up quickly. What I can do is to stay by her side so that she can move forward without any worries. Baisu floated one round around DMO Xian. I suddenly understand why she would be so dead set on choosing you. The two of you are really a match made in heaven. She sighed and turned into a cloud of green smoke as she burrowed into DMO Xian's sleeves. All right, I can't be bothered about the matters between you and your wife. Don't forget, don't kill my sister. If it wasn't for her, who had placed a strand of spiritual awareness on Dmo Xian, Bai Mei would have been dead by now. How could there be a chance to escape from Tenya Ridge? Chapter 44:28. On the other side, Yi Qing Luo had just dived into the double-faced lake. Then she felt an extremely cold feeling enveloping her whole body in an instant. As though she was in an ice cellar, the bone-piercing chill had eroded everything about her. But even though she had sunk into the lake, she didn't feel any suffocating pain from diving into the lake bottom. Yi Qing Luo surveyed her surroundings vigilantly. What entered her eyes was a sea of blue, exquisite corals, seaweed and pearls intertwined as they spread out neatly, like an exquisite flower garden. The decorations were extremely beautiful, and after these decorations, there was a shell-shaped palace. The blue water was sparkling. Yi Qing Luo felt as though she was rippling in the water. She only noticed at this moment. Her body seemed to be plastered with a layer of protective film. This layer of protective film separated her from the surrounding lake water, so that she didn't have the feeling of weightlessness in the water. This should be. Dmo Xian did it when she didn't know. He did it for her. He was always like this, planning out her matters clearly. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled up slightly as her brows were filled with splendor. Suddenly, a heavy sound was heard from the palace, interrupting Yi Qing Luo's thoughts towards Dmo Xian. Yi Qing Luo's brows raised slightly as she looked at the palace in front. What was that sound? There were other people or species existing at the bottom of the lake. Until she reached the bottom of the lake, Yi Qing Luo still didn't know the real reason why Dmo Xian asked her to come here. That sound. Was it calling her over? Yi Qing Luo hesitated for a moment before she lifted her legs and walked towards the direction of the sound. The reason why she appeared here was because she wanted to remove the forbidden spell within her. If she stood at the same spot, she could forget about leaving this lake forever. Xian was waiting outside for her to succeed. Her brothers were still waiting for her to return. She couldn't waste her time here, with this layer of protective film on her body. Yi Qing Luo walked at the bottom of the lake as though she was walking on flat ground. Very quickly, she reached the entrance of the palace. She raised her hand and her fingers tightened as she pushed open the icy cold palace door. The palace door was like the mouth of a shell as it slowly opened. This made Yi Qing Luo's heart inexplicably give birth to a conflicting feeling. She pursed her lips, gritted her teeth, and walked in. With a pung sound, the palace gate was tightly shut. The azure blue in front of him was instantly shrouded in darkness. Yi Qing Luo immediately congealed her senses as she extended her senses to the maximum, surveying the surroundings vigilantly, sensing the movements in the surroundings. All around, there was only the sound of flowing water. Tick-tock! A drop of water in this quiet darkness was extremely clear to the ear. Immediately following that, a ray of light appeared in front of Yi Qing Luo. That light was shining on something. It was faintly discernible, a bit dusky. Yi Qing Luo followed the light and walked over. Then he saw that under the faint light it shone on a wall, a stone wall. Yi Qing Luo inexplicably felt a sense of familiarity. She cautiously took a few steps closer. The mural on the wall was clearly reflected in his eyes. It was a mural of a human figure. She had seen the mural countless times. It was the mural she saw when she was imprisoned in the palace by the mastermind of the secluded palace. Old Man Song said that the person on the mural was once the Lord of God Realm, the Emperor of Gods. Later on, she was still in the Earth Realm and was schemed by the secluded palace lord who pretended to be Dmo Xian. This book came from Chapter 44:29. When she chased to the West Cliff Mountain, she was forcefully dragged into some underground cave by the vines and had once seen that mural on the stone wall. On the human figure mural, the corresponding complex totem was exactly the same. Why was there this mural at the bottom of this lake? The last time in the underground cave, she had almost lost her life in the hands of the King of Darkness. It was this mural that suddenly became scorching hot. Then it saved her life. She entered the inner world of the mural. Yi Qing Luo's fingers slowly caressed the mural. Could it be? Xian's meaning was to let her enter the inner world of the mural and absorb the azure water qi to break the curse in her body? But how was she going to enter the inner world of the mural? Yi Qing Luo's hand touched the mural, and her fingers stopped on the pair of eyes on the mural. Previously, after she entered the inner world of the mural, then she met the real mural. The eyes on the mural could bewitch one's heart. She remembered. Dripping her blood onto that pair of eyes, she then entered a graveyard. Could it be that in order to enter the inner world of the mural, she had to bleed first? Yi Qing Luo looked at the mural for a long time before she raised her hand and slashed it fiercely, dripping her blood onto the mural. It was almost a moment's effort. There was a dull pain in her brain. Following that, a layer of thick red fog covered her eyes. That familiar, majestic graveyard appeared in front of her. Yi Qing Luo vaguely felt that it was a little strange. But momentarily, she couldn't tell what was strange. The sky was filled with a gloomy and treacherous red fog, as though it was covered with a layer of blood water, making one's heart feel cold. Yi Qing Luo followed her memory and walked closer to the graveyard. It was still the entrance in her memory, the stone door in her memory. Not knowing why, on top of that stone door, somehow, he felt as if a vague outline had emerged. Human figure outline. Right. It was the human figure outline on the mural. It floated above the stone door. That human figure outline gradually became clearer and clearer. In the end, it was exactly the same as the real mural in her memory. Pure, elegant, beautiful human figure totem. It was as if a gentle woman had appeared in front of her, especially that pair of eyes which were like the stars in the night, quiet and gentle, elegant and gentle. It was as if he could gently embrace her everything. Yi Qing Luo's heart suddenly tightened fiercely, as though something was piercing her heart. The Emperor of Divine Emperors. These words suddenly appeared in his mind. The faintly discernible woman in front of him. He was the Emperor of Divine Emperors. Yi Qing Luo's heart started pounding heavily. His ears were filled with the sound of his heartbeat. In her mind, the words that Old Man Song had once said to her surfaced bit by bit. On the mural, it's the Emperor of Divine Emperors. The murals depict the vast water divine weapon, and the corresponding totem is the Divine Emperor's tomb. The biggest goal of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness is the tomb of the Divine Emperor. Yi Qing Luo's pupils suddenly constricted. It was as if he suddenly understood something. No wonder! Only her divine phoenix profound heart jade could open the seal on the vast water divine weapon. No wonder! Only her blood could form a contract with the azure water divine weapon. No wonder! Every time she looked at the murals, she would have an inexplicable feeling that there was some kind of connection between her and the murals. No wonder she could enter the inner wall of the mural and see the real tomb of the divine sovereign. Yi Qing Luo's heart was thumping wildly. The thoughts in her mind gradually became clear. She and the Emperor of Divine Emperors must have some connection. This book came from Chapter 4430. Her life experience was ominous, which meant there was a high possibility that she had a deeper relationship with the Emperor of God. Perhaps the answer could be found in the secret compartment in the letter her mother wrote to her and Yi Fengyu. That map could be found. Her mother's letter had mentioned. This was a map related to her, and only she could use this map to reach the destination. And she had warned that if this map was known by others, it would bring about a fatal disaster. Initially, Dmo Xian came to Nirvana Realm because of this map. Could it be? That map was related to the Emperor of God's tomb. This thought made Yi Qing Luo feel as though she was dreaming. The map to the Emperor of God's tomb, was with her? This news was too shocking. She couldn't digest it. The scariest thing was, Old Man Song had once said this, vast water god relic, in addition to her divine phoenix profound heart jade, was the key to open the Emperor of God's tomb. Everyone in the outside world said that she had news of the Emperor of God's tomb. This was really not fake, but it was fine if the news of the divine phoenix profound heart jade was exposed. How could the Palace of Darkness possibly expose the news of the Emperor of God's tomb? The Emperor of God's tomb. That was a place which every cultivator from all the realms wanted to go to. After all, he was once the Emperor of God Realm, the most revered figure in the God Realm. There must be some secrets in the Emperor of God's tomb that she didn't know about. Otherwise, the mastermind of the Palace of Darkness wouldn't be so obsessed with the Emperor of God's tomb. Such important news. Why did the Palace of Darkness announce it to the public? Could it be that there wouldn't be any hidden expert who was tempted by this? Yi Qing Luo pursed her lips tightly. After knowing all these, the burden on her shoulders had become heavier. This was the only clue to her background. She must protect all the secrets of the Emperor of God's tomb. Initially, when Xian saw this map, his expression was so complicated and heavy. At that time, she knew that this map hid a huge secret, but she didn't expect it would be huge to such an extent. Presumably, Xian was aware of this point. Only then would he think of a way to dispel the curse in her body and raise her strength to the point where she could protect herself. Yi Qing Luo's slender fingers clenched tightly one by one as a resolute expression surfaced between her brows. She wanted to become stronger. She had to protect the Azure Water Divine artifact, the Azure Water Bracelet, and the map that her mother had left her. Yi Qing Luo raised her head abruptly. His eyes stared unblinkingly at the magnificent tomb in front of him. Murals, it was a mural of the Divine Emperor. She wanted to break the curse in her body through the tomb of the Divine Emperor. She pressed her hand hard on the door of the graveyard, on the human-shaped mural. At this moment, the aura in her body suddenly collided fiercely. There was a buzzing sound in his head. A strong aura instantly spread around his body. The thick red mist that filled the sky began to roll crazily. Yi Qing Luo only felt boundless energy pouring madly into her body. She felt as if there was something inside her body that was squeezing and crashing against her. Oh, Yi Qing Luo groaned. The painful and swelling feeling made her unable to take it. Her entire body was trembling slightly. The violent and vast aura was still surging unceasingly, as though it was going to pour into Yi Qing Luo's body, rushing against her body. Hurry up and read the latest update. Download address. Phone reading. Chapter 4431. Bam, bam, bam. A huge explosion almost roared into Yi Qing Luo's ears. The majestic, profound wave exploded with a loud bang, setting off the surrounding red mist, forming a surging wave. And Yi Qing Luo was in the middle of the explosion. The surging wave, wave after wave, crashed into her body, but it didn't knock her down. Yi Qing Luo had been enduring this kind of painful impact. It almost wanted to crush her whole body and then reassemble it. Ah! A cry of suffering from power spilled out from Yi Qing Luo's pink lips. A dazzling light rolled out from Yi Qing Luo's whole body. Her body suddenly was bounced up into the sky. The thick red mist wrapped her in layers. Then, quickly, she fell to the ground. The surging, profound wave lingered around her body, quietly flowing. Yi Qing Luo's body suddenly seemed to be unblocked. That wave of pain and swelling pain all disappeared. Her whole body was relaxed, completely without the slightest feeling of heaviness. She clenched her fists, raised both hands. Her gaze looked at the fist that was penetrating the profound wave. A burst of ecstasy in her heart. Her power recovered. Not only recovered, she could even feel. Her own body had also undergone earth-shaking changes. Compared to before, The feeling after the transformation of the physical body was even more relaxed. Just a simple clench of her fists. She could feel the profound energy flowing in her body. She had the feeling of advancement. She could feel herself about to advance. Yi Qing Luo couldn't suppress the ecstasy in her heart. She looked at the grand graveyard in front of her. Her gaze fell on that human-shaped mural. Between her brows, there was a gentle tranquility. She touched the azure dew bracelet. Her fingers touched it lightly. Using her own consciousness, she established a spiritual connection with the azure dew bracelet. Luo Lass. A familiar voice entered her mind. Yi Qing Luo called out in surprise, "Old man Song! What's going on? Why was I inexplicably locked up by you?" Old man Song's voice resounded. "Locked up?" Yi Qing Luo was puzzled. "What's the situation?" "I still want to ask you what's going on." All of a sudden, this old man was locked in the azure dew bracelet's small black room, and I'm unable to contact you. Old man Song expressed that during this period of time, he had been locked in a black space that stretched as far as the eye could see. He couldn't get out and had no way of contacting Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo succinctly explained the matter of Blood-Bone Barbaric King, casting a forbidden curse on her. Then he pointed at the graveyard ahead. "Old man Song, I've entered this graveyard again." Old man Song stared blankly. Only now did he notice his surroundings. "Why do I feel a little strange? Yes, but I can't put my finger on it." Yi Qing Luo pursed her lips. "But it is because of this tomb that I can break the forbidden spell." She paused for a moment, her voice becoming much more serious. "Old man Song, tell me honestly, am I the key to opening the Divine Emperor's tomb?" Old man Song's words stopped in his mouth, just like that, as though he had not expected Yi Qing Luo to ask such a question. "Gathering all the azure dew artifacts, I can help you recover your true body. That time, you told me so." Yi Qing Luo didn't wait for old man Song's reply and continued on her own. "Recovering my true body is part of the reason. The real reason is you also want me to open the Divine Emperor's tomb." Luo Lass. Old man Song didn't know how to answer this question. His voice was somewhat hesitant. Chapter 4432. Yi Qing Luo curled her lips and chuckled. "I'm not blaming you. Why are you so nervous?" Her fingers lightly flicked the azure dew bracelet and continued. "Old man Song, do you still remember the map I placed in the azure dew bracelet?" Old man Song was stunned. Yes. Yi Qing Luo took the map out of the azure dew bracelet. The thin, yellowish paper was stacked neatly in layers. Yi Qing Luo's slender fingers lightly stroked the surface of the map. Profound flame, Dubhe diagram, the map of the Divine Emperor's tomb. "You already know?" Old man Song was shocked. "The Overlord told you everything." "I guessed it." Yi Qing Luo looked down at the map in her palm. "Once I confirmed the relationship between myself and the Divine Emperor, the use of the profound flame Dubhe diagram is not hard to guess." Old man Song sighed. "From the moment you encountered the murals, I knew this matter couldn't be hidden from you for long." Yi Qing Luo, "I know, you and Ah Xian hid it from me because you were worried that I would be under too much pressure. After all, this map hides too many secrets." She took a deep breath and clenched the map in her hand. "Now I know what I'm carrying on my shoulders. I will make myself stronger and protect what belongs to me." Old man Song laughed. His laughter was filled with gratification. "It's best that you can think like this." Just as he was speaking, old man Song suddenly heard something, and his voice carried a bit of snickering. This old man has been locked up in the small black room for so long, and I haven't had the time to chat with you about what happened recently. So soon, this old man has to continue his seclusion again." As old man Song's voice fell, Yi Qing Luo heard familiar footsteps behind her. Her eyes suddenly lit up, and the corners of her mouth raised into a sweet smile. "Ah, Xian, why are you here?" She stood up and looked behind her. What entered her eyes was a man dressed in a flowing purple brocade robe. He had a handsome face, and between his brows was a flow of tenderness and honey. When he saw the girl, the man's lips curled into a smile. "Little Luo." He opened his hands to her. Looking at the man's familiar face, Yi Qing Luo's earlier unhappiness and heavy pressure all vanished into thin air. She stood up and sprinted towards the man. "Ayaya, I'm leaving. This is the world of youngsters. You youngsters should play." Old man Song's tone was filled with disdain for not being able to stand the dog food. Then the azure dew bracelet trembled, and old man Song's aura disappeared. Yi Qing Luo's eyes curved into crescents as she hugged the man's waist. "Didn't you say that you're waiting for me up there? Can't you wait to see me?" "Yeah, I can't wait. I'm worried about you." The man's low and magnetic voice was like mellow wine. He raised his hand and gently stroked the girl's black hair. "Thank goodness you're fine." Yi Qing Luo's eyes were filled with a young lady's coquettishness. "With your meticulous care, how could anything happen to me?" The man's large palm slowly landed on the girl's hand from her head. His shimmering peach blossom eyes looked at the map in Yi Qing Luo's hands as his slender fingers suddenly clamped onto the map. "This is—" When the map was about to leave her hand, Yi Qing Luo didn't know why, but her body reflexively gripped the map tightly. She pushed Dmo Xian away and took a step back. After completing these reflexive actions, Yi Qing Luo realized something was wrong and hurriedly raised her head to explain to Dmo Xian. But the moment she raised her head, "Merry Christmas, my third Christmas with the babies was wonderful. I'll give you a little surprise. Probably. In the evening, you'll know what the little surprise I've prepared for the babies is." End of this chapter. Hurry up and read the latest update. Download address. Phone reading. Chapter 44-33. The man in front of her had an icy cold intent in his eyes. The corners of his lips curled up slightly as it seeped out some icy coldness. Yi Qing Luo was stunned as her eyes looked at him without blinking, as something seemed to be fermenting in her heart. The explanation was at the tip of her tongue, but she swallowed it back. "Lil Luo, you're not obedient." The man's voice was still that magnetic and mellow, with a hint of an unknown smile. Yi Qing Luo felt strange, as her eyes filled with vigilance, but at the next moment, the familiar, elegant sandalwood scent seeped into her nose. It enveloped her entire person in that familiar scent. The man's long arm wrapped tightly around her waist. The other hand speedily pulled out the map in her hands. "You!" Yi Qing Luo was just about to take the map back, but she saw that hand which was locked on his waist suddenly flipping over. A terrifying ray of profound light shot out from his palm. Yi Qing Luo's reaction was swift. As the profound ray expanded, her hand had already locked onto the man's wrist, and with a leap she left his embrace. Bam, bam, bam. A deafening explosion erupted from the place where she had been standing a moment ago. Endless profound ray and strong airflow overlapped. The entire blurry red mist started to churn wildly because of this, even if Yi Qing Luo evaded in time. But that tyrannical profound wave's remnant might still shocked Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo's face turned slightly pale as she retreated 2 steps, as her eyes stared unblinkingly at Dmo Xian. "You're not a Xian. Who on earth are you?" Her Xian absolutely would not lay a hand on her, and absolutely would not bear to hurt her. The man's face was still handsome, and in his shimmering peach blossom eyes, it was still filled with the usual tenderness and pampering. Only the smile on his lips was so cold that it made one's heart tremble. This was not her Xian. Her Xian had never used this kind of attitude to look at her, listening to the young lady's questioning. looking at the cold intent and suspicion on the young lady's face. The man's smile deepened. "Lil Luor, feel that you really understand me?" He laughed softly, his voice low and husky. "Little Luo can always tell me apart at first glance. Then now, little Luo, do you think I'm fake?" Yi Ching Luo's heart thumped hard. His entire body felt stiff and cold. She swallowed her saliva and stared at the man. Yes, in the past countless times he had pretended to be the DMO Xian that appeared in the illusion. She could easily tell if the other party was real or not. But even until now, she couldn't tell from the man's appearance or behavior that he was an imposter. The only thing she couldn't believe was DMO Xian would make a move on her. The man in front of her couldn't be A Xian. It couldn't be A Xian's. Yi Ching Luo tried her best to calm down her breathing. He warned himself not to be affected by the words of this imposter. What a stupid woman. The man saw the changes in Yi Ching Luo's expression. His lips curled up in ridicule, his smile was a little cold. That was the expression he had shown to other women in the past. This lord has already gotten the Tian Shu map. As for you, if you want to live in your own fantasy world, it will make you feel better, so you can continue to think in this way. He opened up the map in his hands. His slender, long fingers slowly caressed the complicated terrain on the map. His dark red thin lips curled deeper. On account of the Tian Shu map, this lord will not kill you. Chapter 44:34. You got close to me just for the Tian Shu map? Yi Ching Luo's fingers clenched tightly as she stared deadly at DMO Xian. The man's eyes were cold. Otherwise, do you think that I really fell in love with you? He scoffed softly, and a mocking sneer appeared in his eyes. Little Luo, do you think, what is there about you that I like? Yi Ching Luo's breathing suddenly became chaotic. She stared at the man's face and carefully observed his expression as he spoke. But no matter how hard she tried to identify it, it was undeniable the man in front of him was indeed DMO Xian. His heart was still unable to believe what was happening before his eyes. She could not believe that DMO Xian would deceive her just for a piece of Tian Shu map. Ah Xian was not such a person. If Ah Xian really didn't love her, why would he dote on her gently? If Ah Xian really didn't love her, how could he have done so many things in the past that moved people to the extreme? How could the warmth and sweetness they once shared be fake? Yi Ching Luo forced herself to calm down and looked for the other party's loophole. Ah Xian had long known that the Tian Shu map was in my hands. If Ah Xian really got close to me because of the Tian Shu map, he could have taken it from me in the beginning. Why would he wait until now? What's the point of getting the Dubhe diagram? The man sneered. The Dubhe diagram is just a map to find the tomb of the divine emperor. The most important key is you. He slowly walked towards Yi Ching Luo. The familiar scent of sandalwood floated in his nose. He slightly leaned over and covered the side of the young girl's ear, laughing lowly. Otherwise, why do you think I brought you here? The double-sided illusory heart lake is the mirror that unravels all of your secrets. I want you to open the divine emperor's tomb. He moved closer and closer. Yi Ching Luo was able to see that peerless face of his. He dared to get so close. He was confident that she wouldn't be able to find any trace of impersonation on him. And as he got closer, it also made Yi Ching Luo's heart cold to the bone. His limbs, bones, and every meridian seemed to be covered in frost. He was so stiff that he couldn't move. It's him. It's really him. It wasn't the fake DMO Xian. It's him. Yi Ching Luo suddenly burst out laughing. Her long and narrow eyes suddenly reddened. Her body swayed, slightly as if she was on the verge of collapse. So everything was fake, fake. Gu Shenwei muttered. The glint in her eyes dimmed. DMO Xian, do you dare to look into my eyes and say it again? She took a deep breath. Suddenly, she stretched out her hands and grabbed DMO Xian's robes. The distance between the two of them closed. His breath hit her face. The girl stubbornly raised her head. Her reddened eyes met his ink-like eyes without blinking. The man's shimmering peach blossom eyes were filled with ridicule. His red lips curled up, and he laughed evilly. "You still don't want to give up?" "Yes." Her voice was slightly hoarse. That look of realization made it easy for people to overlook the viciousness that flashed across her eyes. The man's gorgeous smile was extremely evil. He suddenly bent over, and that peerless face was magnified in Yi-Ching Luo's pupils. Their eyes met. His thin lips moved slightly as he enunciated each word clearly. "I have never loved you. To me, you are merely the key to open the divine Emperor's tomb." This book came from Chapter 4435. Really? The young lady smiled coldly. Her cold voice was filled with a sense of mockery. The man's body suddenly stiffened. His chest suddenly felt numb. He actually couldn't move at all. The man's expression changed as he looked at the young lady in front of him in disbelief. "You? Very curious. Why am I willing to make a move on you?" Yi-Ching Luo smiled lightly. Her hand slowly slid down from the man's chest. Her hand moved away. It could be seen clearly. On that piece of purple robe there was a thick black qi. That was the poison she had placed on the man when he leaned over. Because of the man's self-confidence and his contempt towards Yi-Ching Luo. He couldn't believe that Yi-Ching Luo would make a move on him. Yi-Ching Luo took a step back and retreated from the man's aura. Between her brows there was a cold sneer. To tell the truth, I can't tolerate betrayal. If Xian really makes a move on me, I really will make a move, because I would rather drag him to death with me than to give him a chance to betray me. The man's body stiffened as he heard something wrong in the young lady's words. "What did you say?" Yi-Ching Luo smiled, stretched out her hand, and took back the Tian Shu map from his hand. She flicked the Tian Shu map and slowly folded it. As she folded it, she said faintly, "If Xian wants the Tian Shu map, I will definitely offer it with both hands." "What do you mean by this?" The man's handsome face gradually darkened. Yi-Ching Luo tilted her head. The literal meaning. After she folded the Tian Shu map, she put the map back into the azure dew bracelet. "Yi-Ching Luo, do you think you can trap me?" The man tried hard. The ruthlessness in his eyes made one feel cold. Yi-Ching Luo's face didn't show any signs of panic. She looked at the man with a faint smile. "I indeed can't trap you, but I know how to make you disappear." The expression on the man's face suddenly froze. Yi-Ching Luo turned one round and looked at the surrounding environment. "If it wasn't for your appearance, I might not understand until now." She paused slightly. Then she looked the man in the eyes and said word by word, "Everything here is fake." Yes, it was fake. Everything he saw in front of him was fake, regardless of the mural. Furthermore, he entered the graveyard through the mural. It was all fake, including this man in front of her, who looked exactly the same as DMO Xian. Totally unable to differentiate the real from the fake, was also fake. From the moment she saw the mural to the moment she entered the cemetery, she had been having a very strange feeling. She finally understood what was so strange about it, because everything was going too smoothly, whether it was the murals, the graveyard, or the man in front of him. It was all because of the urgent need and hope in her mind. Therefore, this place had created an illusory realm according to her thoughts. The man in front of her was not DMO Xian, but he was indeed DMO Xian. It was the DMO Xian she had imagined. Therefore, she could not tell whether the man in front of her was real or not. However, she had always believed that DMO Xian would not hurt her, even if the 4 realms were destroyed and all living things were reborn. DMO Xian would never hurt her. Therefore, ever since DMO Xian laid his hands on her, she began to doubt. Illusory heart, double-sided lake, is based on a person's inner heart it creates a mirrored world. If one's willpower is weak, it is very easy to sink into the mirrored world. Am I right? Bookmark, easy to read. Chapter 44:36. So what was she thinking? The next moment, what would appear? But what appeared was not in accordance with the thoughts in her mind, but intentionally or unintentionally, it was guiding her to fall into this mirror image world. For example, the murals. For example, the human totem on the graveyard. For example, DMO Xian. If earlier, because of the murals and the human totem, she had completely fallen into the greed of the Emperor of God or the Emperor of God's tomb, it was very likely that she would not be able to break through the forbidden spell in her body, not to mention regaining her strength. If earlier, because she did not believe in DMO Xian and believed that the man in front of her was DMO Xian himself and was unable to fight back, or because of the betrayal of the person she loved and the pain, she was very likely to never be able to walk out of this pain. Or perhaps she would die in the hands of the DMO Xian in her imagination. No wonder when DMO Xian brought her here, he said one sentence. He said that with her willpower, she would definitely succeed, because he believed that she would not be deceived by the mirror image world. And she was clear-headed because of her trust in DMO Xian. So she survived unscathed. Yi Qing Luo's long and narrow eyes, the corners of her eyes rose slightly, staring at the man in front of her without blinking. Your mission has failed. It's time to disappear. As her words fell, Yi Zichen's expression changed. That stiff and motionless man's figure, like smoke, slowly disappeared in front of Yi Qing Luo. Luo lass, Luo lass. She heard old man Tsang's anxious voice. When Yi Qing Luo turned back, she saw old man Tsang's ethereal body floating behind her. His face was full of anxiety. What's the matter? Yi Qing Luo looked at old man Tsang. What's the matter with you? We were chatting earlier, and suddenly you stared straight ahead. No matter how I called you, you didn't respond. Old man Tsang heard her reply and heaved a sigh of relief. You almost scared me to death. I called you for so long, but you didn't respond, and suddenly went crazy, attacking the air. He paused, and his tone became dignified. What did you encounter earlier? Yi Qing Luo heard that, and was stunned for a moment. If she remembered correctly, did old man Tsang consciously go into seclusion because he saw DMO Xian appearing? That was also an illusion. This mirror image world was indeed impressive. It's all right. Let's leave this place first and meet up with Xian. Yi Qing Luo had no intention to tell him about the mirage that she had just encountered. She glanced at the red mist around her. Because her rationality was becoming more and more clear, the red mist gradually dispersed. They did not converge on her as they had before. How do we leave? Old man Tsang floated to Yi Qing Luo's shoulder. Yi Qing Luo pondered for a moment and said, This place is formed according to my thoughts, so as long as I want to leave, it should be very easy for me to leave. She paused and closed her eyes slightly. In that instant, the thoughts in his mind were slowly cleared away. When she opened her eyes, in front of him was a sea of mirrors. Above, below, left, and right, there were all sparkling mirrors, as far as the eye could see. He also felt a little dizzy. These mirrors were the assistants to form the illusion. Yi Qing Luo was just about to raise her hand to touch the mirror in front of her, when she was stopped by old man Tsang. Don't touch anything here. It's very likely that any random mirror will bring you to a different space. Yi Qing Luo's hand paused and retracted. Chapter 44:37. Concentrate your attention. Old man Tsang reminded. Yi Qing Luo took a deep breath to keep her emotions in the calmest state. In this place, as long as her consciousness was slightly loosened, there was a high possibility that she would be caught by the mirror image and create an illusion. She didn't have the energy to fight with the people in the mirror image world. According to old man Tsang's guidance, plus her own exploration, Yi Qing Luo finally found the exit from the thousands of mirror images. Just pass through the exit. In front of her was a dense forest, and she was suspended in the air, standing in the middle of the lake, which was cut into two. Before she could regain her senses, her delicate body was brought into someone's arms. The familiar and elegant sandalwood scent instantly lingered in her nostrils. Lil Luo. The man's voice was slightly hoarse and revealed a sense of joy of regaining a lost treasure. He used both his hands to encircle her, as if he wanted to knead her whole body into his body. The overbearing masculine aura showed his longing for her. Yi Qing Luo was still in a daze. She allowed Dmo Xian to hug her. There was no rejection, but there was no response. Lil Luo. Dmo Xian sensed something was wrong with Yi Qing Luo and immediately pulled her away, looking at her worriedly. Yi Qing Luo's hands suddenly stretched out to his face. She pinched him on the cheek with all her strength. The face of the handsome man, who was peerless in his generation, was pinched flat by the girl's hands. The man was stunned. Then, a doting smile appeared on his face. He allowed the young lady's actions and didn't stop her. Between his brows, there was a young lady's tenderness. After pinching for a while, Yi Qing Luo blinked her eyes and stared straight at Dmo Xian. Are not an illusion. A sexy deep laugh overflowed from the man's thin lips. He stretched out his hand again and brought the young lady into his arms. It's been hard on you, my Lil Luo. This was the disadvantage of the illusory heart double-sided lake. Those who entered the lake would either sink into the illusion of the lake and never be able to come out, or, after going through several rounds in the lake, the one who walked out was unable to believe it. Reality was reality. The moment she left the twin-face lake, she was hugged by Dmo Xian. Yi Qing Luo indeed thought for a moment that she was in another illusion. However, in the illusion, she could rely on Dmo Xian to distinguish the illusion. And now, she was relying on Dmo Xian to ascertain that this was the real world. Ah, Xian, I did it. The forbidden spell in my body has been broken. Yi Qing Luo buried her head in his arms. Her tone was filled with complacency. Dmo Xian's large palm caressed the young lady's hair. I know you can do it. Yi Qing Luo recalled what happened at the bottom of the lake. She muttered to herself for a moment and continued, I also discovered some secrets regarding me. Dmo Xian's palm paused slightly as he lowered his eyes to look at the young lady, then now. Is Lil Luo ready to take on the next challenge? You knew about it long ago, right? Yi Qing Luo remembered that Dmo Xian had mentioned the importance of the heavens pivot map previously. Presumably, from that time onwards, Dmo Xian had already guessed many things. At that time, I didn't want you to bear such a heavy burden so early. To tell the truth, I also don't want you to know about it so early. Dmo Xian sighed. Secluded palace is pressing too hard, so you have no choice but to hasten your footsteps, to make yourself stronger. Hurry up and read the latest update. Download address. Chapter 4438. With pressure, there'll be motivation. Yi Qing Luo looped her arms around his neck as she smiled at him. I will guard what belongs to me and will work hard to make myself stronger, trying not to become your burden. To me, you've never been a burden. The man's long arm locked her tightly as his magnetic deep voice was extremely pleasant to the ears. You are my motivation. Yi Qing Luo's brows were like a blossoming flower, brilliant and resplendent. Their 4 eyes met, flowing with warmth and sweetness. The surroundings seemed to have pink bubbles, as it kept on spreading. Cough, cough, cough. Old Man Tsang's voice was heard from the azure dew bracelet. The both of you. Even if you're lovey-dovey, you need to pay attention to the timing. Now isn't the time for you to be lovey-dovey. Yi Qing Luo's face didn't turn red, nor did her heart skip a beat. It wasn't easy to escape from death. Of course, I need my own man's love to comfort me. Old Man Tsang's spiritual body floated out from the azure dew bracelet. Now that you're done comforting her, shouldn't you settle the proper matters? Proper matters? Yi Qing Luo tilted her head. Old Man Song's face was filled with disappointment. You've just regained your ability and broke through the meridians in your body. So you can take the opportunity to advance. Don't tell me you don't want to take this opportunity to enter the azure dew bracelet to cultivate. Yi Qing Luo was just about to open her mouth. Old Man Song's face was filled with disappointment. Don't forget, you don't have any extra time now. Entering the Purgatory Tower is your only choice now. Purgatory Tower. She had forgotten about it. Her azure dew bracelet had 12 levels of purgatory. She had only passed through 4 levels. That was indeed the best place to advance. What Old Man Song said is right. Di Emotion caressed the young lady's hair. Take the opportunity now to enter the Purgatory Tower to advance first. I'll wait for you here. She had just returned to his side. Was she going to make him continue to wait? Furthermore, did she really have the time to enter the Purgatory Tower now? As though he could tell what Yi Qing Luo was thinking, the man's broad palm cupped her cheeks, treating her like a precious treasure as he slowly lowered his head, looking close to her face. I've set up an enchantment around the world group's surroundings. If the people from the heaven realm really break in, I will sense it. He explained in a gentle voice, easily soothing the anxiety and uneasiness in Yi Qing Luo's heart. Don't worry about how long I'll wait for you, because no matter how long it takes, I'll always be by your side. Yi Qing Luo's pupils reflected the man's peerless looks. Their eyes met for a long time. Her pink lips curled up into a smile, and she nodded vigorously. I won't let you wait for too long. He could grow a little. It would be relatively safer. He had the time and the opportunity to become stronger. She had to seize this opportunity. After Yi Qing Luo entered the azure dew bracelet, she was dragged into the Purgatory Tower by Old Man Song. He didn't give her the slightest chance to breathe. Layer after layer of purgatory trials were activated without interruption. Yi Qing Luo was almost completely exhausted. Old Man Song looked at the sweaty girl in the Purgatory Tower, his eyes filled with concern and hope. Now, things had developed to this point. There was no way to turn the situation around. Even if Yi Qing Luo didn't have the so-called Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade, and didn't have the so-called Divine Emperor's Tomb Secret, those people who got the news would not let Yi Qing Luo off. Moreover, Yi Qing Luo indeed had it. He could only try his best to let Yi Qing Luo have more ways to protect her life. End of this chapter. Chapter 4439. Little child. Yet he had to bear so much pressure. Only Yi Qing Luo. She would be able to hold on. Old Man Song sighed. His spiritual body floated and floated, following the azure dew bracelet, and floated outside. The young girl sat cross-legged on the spot, her face calm and her eyes closed, and the man was sitting opposite her. Completely disregarding the dirt and mess on the ground, he sat on the ground. A purple robe spread on the ground. His vision fell on the young girl's face without blinking, paying attention to the young girl's situation at all times. Seeing Old Man Song's spiritual body, Diemo Xian's eyes moved slightly. Do you have time to chat? Old Man Song floated over. Diemo Xian looked at Yi Qing Luo and nodded slightly. Old Man Song's illusory figure lightly floated to his side. You. Old Man Song opened his mouth, but didn't know how to ask. Diemo Xian looked at him and said indifferently, You want to ask this, Lord, if I will take away the Tianshu map, right? Diemo Xian's straightforward words made Old Man Song's expression slightly awkward. This Lord is just. This Lord understands. Diemo Xian wasn't angry. This Lord knows. You're doing this for little Luo. Old Man Song's 2 hands crossed together, clasped tightly. That girl believes in you, so much that even if you want her life, she will give it to you with a smile. This lord has no intention of doubting you. Just want to confirm. Old man Song, Di Emotien's calm and indifferent voice interrupted his somewhat chaotic explanation. This lord understands your concern. His gaze returned back to Yi Qing Luo, as his gaze was filled with gentleness and pampering. Right from the start, this lord had indeed gone to Nirvana Realm for the Tianshu map, but after meeting Lil Luo, this lord's motive for staying in Nirvana Realm was only for her. His voice was deep and magnetic, word by word. Even if little Luo wants this lord's life, this lord will not hesitate to give it to her. Old man Song stared at Di Emotien's face. After a long while, he suddenly laughed. Your feelings towards that girl is still as sincere as ever. Di Emotien did not speak. Old man Song laughed for a while. His incorporeal figure, which seemed like it could be blown away by a gust of wind, took a step back and floated in the air. Actually, this old man is very worried. Her secrets are related to the development of the various realms. If someone finds out about her secrets, the world will fall into chaos. She definitely doesn't want to be a burden to you. Old man Song lightly sighed. Although she doesn't say anything on the surface, in reality, she cares about this matter more than anyone else in her heart. What she doesn't want the most is to become your burden, to drag you down. This lord knows. Di Emotien's thin lips curled into a shallow arc. That was towards Yi Qing Luo a unique gentleness. This lord has always seen her hard work, so no matter how reluctant this lord is, this lord will give her space to grow. His words fell. His eyes were already looking at Old Man Song. No matter what, I will accompany her at her side. Even if she is worried about dragging me down and escapes from my side, I will still capture her and bring her back. One sentence easily resolved the tangled matter in Old Man Song's heart. Yes, he was just worried because Yi Qing Luo was too stubborn. She was worried that she would drag the people around her down and bear the external pressure alone. Chapter 4440. But now with Di Emotien's guarantee, Old Man Song wasn't worried anymore, because no matter what decision Yi Qing Luo made, as long as Di Emotien didn't agree to it, Di Emotien would definitely have a way to dispel Yi Qing Luo's bad thoughts. Old Man Song's figure floated up. That lass has a mister right like you, I can rest assured. He laughed loudly. His figure turned more and more transparent. Then it disappeared into thin air. Di Emotien's gaze returned back to the young lady. His gaze was gentle and affectionate, and the curve of his lips released an irresistible charm. Lil Luor, I will always be by your side, always. In the depths of Heaven Cliff Ridge, Yen Xiao Yi and the rest waited anxiously. After Yi Qing Luo and Di Emotien left, their hearts were unable to calm down. They sat on the same spot for quite some time. Yen Xiao Yi simply couldn't suppress the worry in her heart, and with a swish, she threw the stone in her hand. I'll go over there to calm down. If she continued to suppress it, their worries towards Yi Qing Luo would be even greater. Even if they understood that Yi Qing Luo left with Di Emotien to undo the forbidden curse in her body, even if they knew that the Overlord was around, Yi Qing Luo wouldn't have any problems. But they still couldn't help but worry. Adding on to the fact that they knew that outside Heaven Cliff Ridge, numerous forces had gathered to deal with Yi Qing Luo, they were worried again. When Di Emotien and Yi Qing Luo left to find a way to undo the forbidden curse in their bodies, would they meet those people? No matter how powerful the Overlord and Qing Luo were. But what if the other party had more people? What if the other party had sinister tricks? The more she thought, the more confused Yen Xiao Yi's heart became. She had just stood up and had yet to walk into the forest. Qiao Jin pulled her back. Don't go away. Don't forget, this is Heaven Cliff Ridge. Heaven Cliff Ridge was filled with unknown dangers, and no one knew what would happen in the next second. Ah, Jean! Yan Xiao grabbed Xiao Jin's collar tightly. I'm worried about her. I'm really worried about her. Everyone is worried about Qing Luo. Xiao Jin held her hand. Moreover, Qing Luo must be worried about us, so we must not do anything to Qing Luo. Little Jean is right. Zhou Mo's careless voice rang out. The venerable sovereign has set up a barrier around here. None of us knows what will happen if we walk out of the barrier. As he spoke, he even touched his dark red lips with a faint smile. This young master and Ah Wu are staying here to protect you. If you go too far, and something happens to you, it won't be this young master's responsibility. What nonsense are you talking about? Kitty Li's claw hammered his chest. Big Sister Xiao, he is also concerned about Big Sister. It's fine if you don't comfort her, but you're still making sarcastic remarks from the side. I my little wildcat. Zhou Emo put on a pained expression and grabbed her little hand. This young master is telling her not to wander too far away. This is also for her safety. That's why I'm reminding her. Kitty Li harumphed heavily. Yan Xiaoyi's expression darkened as she pursed her lips tightly. Xiao Jin exerted strength and pulled her into his arms. All right, don't think so much. Believe in Qing Luo, believe in the venerable sovereign. Yan Xiao buried her head in Xiao Jin's arms as her little hand clutched his robe tightly. She raised her head and looked at Xiao Jin with an aggrieved look. Just as she was about to open her mouth to act coquettishly, suddenly her peripheral vision fell onto a certain spot behind Xiao Jin. Chapter 44-41. There's someone. Yan Xiao stretched out her hand and grabbed Xiao Jin's arm, pulling him behind her as she stared coldly in front. Following Yan Xiao Yi's words, the few of them immediately looked towards the direction which she was looking at. They saw the dense forest, not too far away. The lush leaves were shaking with all their might, as though something was shuttling through the dense forest. The few of them instantly became alert. The dense forest was in turmoil. Everyone was silent for quite some time, following the degree of shaking of the leaves. The few of them could tell that the degree of shaking was getting nearer to them. Very quickly, a few figures dressed in black robes appeared. 5 of them were tall, and their faces were ferocious as they emitted a vicious aura. The 5 of them had a cautious look on their faces as they peeped out of the lush leaves and looked around. Their gazes suddenly fell onto a few youngsters who were either standing or sitting in front of them. Both parties sized each other up for a long time. The leader's gaze fell onto Huangfu Sheng as his expression sunk. You're the young master of the Huangfu family. I heard that you're familiar with the eldest young miss of the Gu residence. Since you're here, doesn't that mean that the eldest young miss of the Gu residence is here? That man opened his mouth and questioned them in a rude and unreasonable manner. The few of them present were all handsome and elegant looking, and their ages looked to be in their teens or 20s, and they looked extremely unfamiliar. The 5 black-robed men totally didn't put them in their eyes. Huangfu Sheng, who was called out, frowned as he stood up. Who are you? You don't need to care who we are. That man saw that Huangfu Sheng didn't rebuke and sneered. Hand over the eldest young miss of the Gu residence. Otherwise, don't blame us for not showing mercy. She's not here. Huangfu Sheng's expression was solemn. Not here. That man's expression twisted as he exchanged glances with the other 4 beside him. Following that, he looked ferocious as he looked around the surroundings. They indeed didn't discover Yi Qing Luo's figure. Boss, we've worked so hard to get to where we are now, and so many of our brothers have died. We can't just let it go like this. The black-robed man behind him had a sinister look as he sized up the surrounding people. We'll tie her up and force the eldest young miss of the Gu residence to appear. The few black-robed men's expressions turned cold as they revealed a sinister smile. They heard the news from the Dark Abyss Palace and found their way here. Gu Zixi lowered her voice and held Huangfu Sheng's arm. Sheng, be careful. The fact that they're here means that a large number of people have already entered the horizon ridge. Human ambition and desire could drive them, and they were not afraid of any hardships or dangers. Even though he knew how dangerous the Tenya Ridge was, he didn't care, but he still walked in fearlessly. Someone sacrificed to pave the road. Eventually, someone would come looking for him. Now he had met them. But what if those people who came and met Yi Qing Luo? This thought caused the expressions of the few of them to instantly turn cold. The young boys and girls looked at each other. He could see the same emotion in the other party's eyes. Worried for Yi Qing Luo, wanting to do something for her. Bang! The few of them shot out like sharp arrows. As the air surged, countless piercingly cold sharp lights flashed. The 5 of them probably didn't expect this. They hadn't made a move yet. These brats who hadn't even grown their hair, yet actually dared to take the initiative to attack them. When the wind from their palms landed on them, only then did they react and quickly dodge. Boom! The strong, profound wave brushed past their bodies. The entire ground cracked. The few of them were also sent flying by the strong wind. Chapter 44-42. The 5 black-robed men's expressions had a huge change, feeling that their dignity was being challenged as they bellowed malevolently, "You're looking for death!" They all struck out in unison. 3 couples were right there, exchanging blows with the 5 black-robed men. The entire dense forest was filled with the surging, majestic aura of profound waves, whereas on the other side, Kitty Lee clenched her little claws as she stared intently at the battle. When she saw the precipitous situation, her little body kept on twisting, trying to struggle out of the man's embrace. But the arm around her waist was locked onto her tightly. Kitty Lee couldn't take it anymore as her little claws scratched Zomo's arm. "Let go of Kitty! Kitty wants to go over and help." The man lowered his head slightly. His overly long black hair fell onto Kitty Lee's shoulder. The man's flirtatious thin lips curled up as he laughed lightly. "Little wild cat, be obedient and accompany me to watch the show. Don't move around. If you're not going to help, Kitty will help." Kitty Lee puffed her cheeks, looking at his companions fighting. Yi Zichen felt a chill, but she just stood by the side. How could she stand here with a clear conscience? Zhou Emo turned his head as he looked at the 2 people who were leaning against the tree with an indifferent expression. "Help?" "No need." Gue Wu didn't even lift his eyelids. "It's a rare chance to train." Zhou Emo looked at Ghost Thief. Ghost Thief touched the golden ingot on his waist as he shrugged. "What Gue Wu said is right." Zhou Emo retracted his gaze. "Heard that?" Kitty Lee pursed her lips. Then, "Kitty also wants to train." "But I can't bear to." Zhou Emo rubbed her head. "Be good. Believe in the person whom your sister, Qing Luo, has chosen." While the 2 of them were talking, the other side was already locked in battle. The surrounding forest had already turned into ruins. Gravel flew everywhere as the trees fell onto the ground. The atmosphere was tense as the World Group's few people's battle intent was burning even more vigorously. Just at this moment, Gue Wu's ears moved slightly as his expression congealed as he looked ahead. Ghost Thief also looked ahead at the same time. I didn't expect so many people to come." Zhou Emo looked over there as he clicked his tongue with an astonished look. Not far in front of them, a group of people and horses were charging over aggressively. Compared to the 5 people in front of him, these people's auras were much more tyrannical and ruthless. He rushed over with a murderous aura. His gaze fell on the few people who were fighting. This was just a prelude. Immediately after, countless men and horses, one group after another, walked over from not far away. The few people who were fighting each other realized that something was wrong and stopped. He surveyed his surroundings. They were all stunned. At this time, more teams were arriving one after another. Yan Xiao immediately spotted a person in that group of people. By May. Among the various groups of people, there was a group of about 10 people standing in a position that was not too prominent. The person in the lead was a young, beautiful, and extremely charming woman in fluttering white clothes. From her posture, one could tell who she was with a single glance. Bai Mei changed her face again. The expressions of the few of them became extremely complicated. From her posture, one could tell who she was with a single glance. From her posture, one could tell who she was with a single glance. From her posture, one could tell who she was with a single glance. From her posture, one could tell who she was with a single glance. From her posture, one could tell who she was with a single glance. From her posture, one could tell who she was with a single glance. From her posture, one could tell who she was with a single glance. From her posture, one could tell who she was with a single glance. The expressions of the few of them immediately became extremely complicated. The few of them's expressions instantly turned extremely complicated. Chapter 44-43. Bai Mei's words immediately caused the surrounding troops to look around warily. They who had ventured into Tianya Ridge to reach this place. Wasn't their motive to capture Yi Qing Luo? Everyone was very clear about it, but this purpose was so bluntly stated. Everyone subconsciously treated the bunch of people around them as their enemies. After all, everyone's motive was the same. I advise you'd better hand over Yi Qing Luo, Gu Residence's eldest miss, obediently, in case you get implicated by her. Bai Mei's eyes were filled with a chilly glint. As though she thought of something, her lips couldn't help but snigger. You guys are, after all, from Nirvana Realm, through the Overlord's power to come to Heaven Realm. Heaven Realm can't be compared to your Nirvana Realm. This isn't the time for you to show off your so-called loyalty. Once the people from Heaven Realm make a move, there's a possibility that you will die without a complete corpse. What, Nirvana Realm? Why would people from the lower realm come to Heaven Realm? Lowly commoners from the lower realm? How dare they come to Heaven Realm? Even if it's the Overlord, he should also abide by our Heaven Realm's rules. Not just anyone can be brought to our heavenly realm. The faces of the people in the surroundings changed tremendously when they heard the words. The gazes they shot at them were filled with disdain and enmity. Bai Mei's red lips curled up in satisfaction as her smile became increasingly sinister. I advise you to tell us Yi Qing Luo's whereabouts quickly. I know Yi Qing Luo values you very, very much and cares about you, but if you insist on not listening, various powerhouses' cultivators might use you to threaten Yi Qing Luo to come out. When she said the latter part, Bai Mei intentionally slowed down her speed. The surrounding people seemed to have received some hints. In the midst of eye contact, suddenly, a group of men and horses charged towards Yan Shao Yi and the rest at high speed. In case someone snatched the first opportunity, seeing that there were people moving. Soon, people from all directions rushed over in unison. The speed was fast, and the profound wave was sharp. It made the few young men's expressions changed. And those 5 black-robed men who exchanged blows with them earlier also had a dazed look. Why did they suddenly lose their scenes? Be careful. There was a cry of surprise. The battle instantly broke out. This time Gui Wu and the rest did not stand by the side and watch the show. He quickly rushed into the midst of the troops. Oh! Yi Qing Luo suddenly felt an indescribable pain in her heart. She paused for a moment. He was almost slapped by the mountain-like beast in front of him. She focused her mind and leaped, dodging the beast's attack. That uneasy premonition in his heart still persisted. He had a feeling that something had happened. Focus! Beside his ear, Old Man Song's stern voice sounded. This is the 8th level of purgatory. Don't think that you can underestimate the enemy just because you are strong now. The 8th level of purgatory is definitely not as simple as you think. Yi Qing Luo bit her lower lip tightly. He managed to dodge the beast's continuous attacks. She tried her best to restrain her emotions and calm herself down. She did not know how long she had stayed in the Purgatory Tower. He only knew. She went from the 4th level of the Purgatory to the 8th level. There was no interval in between, no rest. She had been trying her best to break through, until the 7th level started. She was starting to feel exhausted. And now to the 8th level's arena. Chapter 44-44. Any slight carelessness. There was a high possibility of being hurt by this giant beast. If she was distracted again, this 8th floor she might fail. No matter where this uneasiness came from, no matter what, she had to get through this hurdle. Her brothers were still waiting for her to return. She needed enough strength. Her brothers were working hard for her. She couldn't give up easily. She calmed down. After an hour of a prolonged battle of attrition, the Heavenly Dragon King's army finally arrived. Yi Qing Luo finally defeated the 8th floor's giant beast. She rubbed her forehead tiredly and looked up at the totem that was flashing with the word 9. She shook her head. Don't continue to the next floor. When Yi Qing Luo walked out of the Purgatory Tower, Old Man Tsang floated over from the side. Lass, do you need to rest? Yi Qing Luo leaned against the side and sat down. I'm going out. What's the matter? Old Man Tsang saw her serious expression and thought of her absent-minded state in the battle. Why did you absent-mindedly in the battle earlier? I'm panicking. Yi Qing Luo pressed her heart. Is Xian still outside? What could happen to the Overlord? He has been guarding you. Old Man Tsang had been watching Yi Qing Luo's progress from the Azure Dew Bracelet after chatting with Mo Xian. He thought Yi Qing Luo missed Mo Xian too much because absence makes the heart grow fonder. Yi Qing Luo shook her head. No, maybe something happened to everyone. She had signed a contract with Kitty, Li, and Long Yunjian. She could sense their condition. She suddenly had such a strong feeling of uneasiness. It must have something to do with them. Not waiting for Old Man Tsang to answer, her consciousness had already left the Azure Dew Bracelet. The moment she opened her eyes, she saw Mo Xian's back facing her, looking at the sky in front. The air was filled with a cold and solemn atmosphere. She hadn't opened her mouth. The man seemed to have sensed something and turned around. Little Luo, he saw Yi Qing Luo and opened his arms to her. You've worked hard. Seeing Yi Qing Luo appear, he wasn't surprised at all. He seemed to have guessed that she would come out today. Yi Qing Luo walked towards him, looked up and saw the man's tired expression. She reached out and wrapped her arms around his waist. Xian, did something happen to them? Let's go over first. Mo Xian did not answer directly, but this sentence represented everything. Yi Qing Luo's heart thumped hard. She suppressed the uneasiness in her heart. Okay, the two sat on Little Nine's back. He quickly headed in the direction of his brothers. He had yet to get close. Dense, profound waves rippled in the air. It was as if it could destroy heaven and earth. The air had already been enveloped by this enormous, profound wave. Sand and stones flew everywhere, and trees were uprooted one by one. Yi Qing Luo's expression congealed. When Little Nine neared, the situation below was extremely clear. About 100 profound practitioners surrounded the few people in the middle in a frenzy. Even with the ghost martial artist, ghost bandit, and Zomo's protection, those people were still having a hard time. Their bodies were covered with sporadic bloodstains. It was no longer clear whether it was the blood of the other party or his own. His entire body was in a mess, and he was in an extremely sorry state. But on the faces of those young people, however, it was an expression of unwavering determination and unwavering determination. Their eyes were burning with battle intent and flames, as if it could burn all beliefs. Bam! A strong airflow swept Huangfu Sheng and Gu Zixi out. The two fell heavily to the ground. Blood overflowed from the corners of their lips, but they didn't retreat at all. They stood up tightly and held the weapons in their hands tightly. Chapter 44-45. Zi-Qing. Another cry was heard. Tong Zi-Qing's figure was also sent flying as she fell heavily onto the ground. Long Yunjian flew forward in an attempt to help Tong Zi-Qing up. Tong Zi-Qing's expression congealed. "Group leader, be careful behind you!" After Long Yunjian helped Tong Zi-Qing up, he hurriedly blocked the attacks from behind. This inevitably caused him to be injured on top of his own injuries. The other party's numbers were simply too many. Moreover, the disparity between their abilities and Long Yunjian's group was extremely huge. Even if there were Ghost Marshal and Ghost Thief plus SOMO, they were unable to resist against so many people. It could be said, these young men and young ladies were already extremely lucky to be able to maintain till now and not die. Yi-Qing Luo's eyes seemed to have been dyed with thick ink as it surged with surging waves. The World Group's brothers, after falling down, stood up again. After falling down, stood up again. Their entire bodies were covered in blood as it hurt Yi-Qing Luo's eyes. Lil Luo'er. DMO Xian held onto the young lady's shoulder as he spoke in a warm voice. "They are all fine. This is a necessary path for them to grow." Yi-Qing Luo's petite body was trembling slightly. The black whirlpool in her eyes was unable to be stopped. Suddenly, her gaze was fixed on a certain spot. A white-robed figure, in the midst of the chaos, speedily headed towards Long Yunjian's direction. That figure's speed was extremely fast. His eyes were filled with a sinister coldness. A powerful sinister qi encircled that person's body, breaking through the surrounding people who were blocking his way. Charging straight towards Long Yunjian, by Mei. Yi-Qing Luo's pupils constricted as she gritted her teeth and spat out these two words. Following that, she leapt upwards as her figure speedily headed downwards. Lil Luo'a. DMO Xian didn't catch hold of her as he watched the young lady charging into the crowd like a raging flame. Between his brows, he continued to reveal helplessness. He took a look at his sleeve as his gaze turned icy cold. "By Su, if by Mei hurts Lil Luo, no matter what you say, it's useless." There seemed to be something moving in his sleeves, but there was no response. By Mei sneered coldly. She lowered her eyes and looked at the thing shrouded in black mist in her palm. Then she looked at Long Yunjian, who was supporting Tong Zi-Qing and doing his best to repel the profound practitioners in front of them. Her smile grew wider. It was getting closer. He was close. It was getting closer and closer. Bai Mei was so excited that her hands were trembling as she held the black mist. Amidst the chaotic battle, no one noticed her approach. Bai Mei raised her hand and placed it on Long Yunjian's shoulder. Suddenly, a majestic force rushed over. He directly bumped into Bai Mei and Long Yunjian. Bai Mei was knocked back 2 steps by the shockwave from the blast. A sharp blade grazed the skin of her wrist. Bright red blood gushed out. Bai Mei clutched her wrist in pain. The object shrouded in black fog in his palm also disappeared in an instant. Bai Mei gritted her teeth and glared in the direction of the attack. The first thing he saw was the young girl's beautiful and cold face. She was stunned at first, and then an uncontrollable jealousy and hatred appeared in her eyes. Following that, she raised her voice and shouted, "Yi-Qing Luo, I didn't expect you to show yourself." This shout of hers, it instantly caused the gazes of the profounders in the surroundings to shoot over in unison. Yi-Qing Luo. It's the eldest young miss of the Gu residence. The person who owns the divine phoenix profound heart jade, and knows the secret of the divine emperor's tomb. Where? Everyone's gazes were directed towards Yi-Qing Luo. Their eyes were filled with unconcealable greed. Hurry up and read the latest update. Download address. Phone reading. Chapter 44-46. Those people's gazes seemed as though they wanted to swallow Yi-Qing Luo into their stomachs. Bai Mei smiled coldly and curled her red lips. She was flirtatious and flirtatious. You still dare to appear. I thought that you wanted to monopolize the divine phoenix profound heart jade and then search for the secret of the divine emperor's tomb alone. Monopolizing the divine phoenix profound heart jade. Finding the secret of the divine emperor's tomb alone. These words immediately caused the surrounding crowd to burst into an uproar. What right do you have to monopolize the divine phoenix profound heart jade? Tell me the secret of the divine emperor's tomb. Little girl, don't think that Bone Lord can guarantee your safety just because you're the first young lady of the Gu residence. If you're sensible, quickly hand over the divine phoenix profound heart jade. Countless curses and threats rose and fell one after another. Those forces that had always thought highly of themselves and called themselves reputable and noble families didn't even try to conceal their greed. Pucci, Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but laugh out. Amidst the curses and threats, the young girl's laughter was extremely abrupt. Everyone looked at each other in bewilderment at his laughter. What are you laughing at? A powerful person shouted in a low voice. Me. Yi Qing Luo's pink lips curled up slightly with a chilly smile. I'm laughing at your stupidity. You. Everyone's expression changed drastically as they glared at the girl in front of them. Who would have thought that she would still be so daring when surrounded by so many people? Facing the infuriated gazes of the crowd, Yi Qing Luo's brows were filled with laziness as her expression didn't change at all. She smiled coldly and continued, If you weren't stupid, why would you ask such a stupid question? As she spoke, the young girl's gaze swept across the crowd, and she laughed mockingly. What right do I have to monopolize the divine phoenix profound heart jade, just based on the fact that the divine phoenix profound heart jade is mine? It's my stuff. What can you do to me? This sentence was also an indirect admission. She did indeed possess the divine phoenix profound heart jade. Everyone's gazes towards Yi Qing Luo became even more fiery. Bai Mei quietly retreated to the back of the crowd. Hearing Yi Qing Luo's words, he looked at the gazes of the people around him. Her red lips curled into a proud smile. Did this Yi Qing Luo really think that she could ignore all the cultivators just because she was an overlord? She actually admitted that the divine phoenix profound heart jade was with her. What does stupidity mean? This is what you call stupid, right? Ha! Yi Qing Luo is dead meat today. She would just stand right here and admire Yi Qing Luo's pathetic state and humiliation before her death. The more Bai Mei thought about it, the more excited she became. It was as if he had already seen the scenes that he had imagined appearing in front of his eyes. Suddenly, the girl's indifferent voice rang out again. Stop looking. No matter how you look, what's mine won't be yours. As for the secret of the divine emperor's tomb, where did you hear about it? Everyone was infuriated by Yi Qing Luo's arrogant and rude words. One by one, they glared at her with gloomy expressions. Little girl, I advise you to be obedient. Don't talk nonsense. You'll be the one who suffers in the end. Don't try to quibble. Tell him the secret of the divine emperor's tomb. You're a young lady. Even if you keep this secret, it's of no use to you. Numerous threats, persuasions, and coercive words came one after another. Chapter 44-47. This news should be spread out from the Palace of Darkness. I forgot to tell you. A few days ago, this young lady called Bai Mei led a bunch of people from the Palace of Darkness and surrounded me at Heaven's Edge Ridge. That day, she snatched quite a number of things from me. Whether or not the secret of the divine emperor's tomb was among them, I don't know. Yi Qing Luo's shifting of the blame was done beautifully. This sentence was set out. Bai Mei's expression changed. What nonsense are you sprouting? When did I surround you? What kind of trash is the Palace of Darkness? Don't you all have any idea? Yi Qing Luo scoffed coldly. Quite a number of gazes turned towards Bai Mei, using the same gaze which she used to look at Yi Qing Luo earlier, looking at her. Bai Mei's heart thumped as her face turned pale. I didn't. She did it on purpose to divert your attention. Do I need to divert my attention? If I divert my attention, won't they snatch my profound jade heart? Yi Qing Luo rolled her eyes. But you all, after snatching my things, you intentionally spread the secret of the divine emperor's tomb. Don't tell me you're doing it on purpose, trying to concentrate all your firepower on me alone? Following Yi Qing Luo's words, the surrounding people's gazes towards Bai Mei were filled with a strange greed. Actually, no matter if what Yi Qing Luo said was true or false, they would choose to believe this was a matter related to the divine emperor's tomb. Moreover, what Yi Qing Luo said wasn't without reason. Yi Qing Luo had the divine phoenix profound jade heart on her, and they snatched it away. A waste without a profound jade heart. Why would she need to occupy the secret of the divine emperor's tomb? Bai Mei realized that everyone's gaze towards her was totally different from before. All her complacency had turned into despair. She staggered backwards as her eyes widened. No. She's lying, I didn't. The secret of the divine emperor's tomb is on her. Bai Mei shook her head frantically as she stared at Yi Qing Luo venomously. But she saw Yi Qing Luo's lips curling upwards as she gave a sly and teasing smile. Her brows were filled with fooling, as if laughing at her stupidity. Bai Mei was so infuriated that her entire body was trembling. She knew that she would not be able to escape today, but she would absolutely not let Yi Qing Luo off. You are indeed extremely stupid. How could you believe the words of that slut? She was deliberately stalling for time so that she could activate the divine phoenix profound heart jade in her body. Once the divine phoenix profound heart jade is activated, none of you will escape. Since they all believed that the divine emperor's tomb was with her. That's great. Yi Qing Luo, who possessed the divine phoenix profound heart jade, was not having it easy either. Bai Mei had already given up on herself. This made everyone immediately look towards Yi Qing Luo in alarm. It is not that they are easily swayed. Instead, it was because they had to prioritize their own interests. They could not afford to make any mistakes. He would rather kill the wrong person than let him go. As for the divine phoenix profound heart jade, everyone had only heard of its uses, but he had never truly come into contact with it. Because of this, he was unable to determine whether what Bai Mei had said was true or false. Regardless of whether it was true or not, they couldn't afford to gamble. Bai Mei was surrounded and forced to reveal the location of the divine emperor's tomb. There were also people who speedily attacked Yi Qing Luo. They absolutely could not give Yi Qing Luo any chance to activate the divine phoenix profound heart jade. Qing Luo, be careful. Attacks from all directions surged over. Yan Xiao Yi and the others were trembling in fear as they hurriedly reminded her. Chapter 44-48. Huge, profound wave with majestic power. Countless illusory attacks formed a monstrous wave. Yi Qing Luo took a look at Long Yunzhan and Tong Ziqing, who were blocked behind her. She couldn't shift her body. Otherwise, the two people behind her would have to bear the attacks from all directions. Yi Qing Luo's eyes turned cold as she raised her right hand. A flame bloomed on her fingertips. A fiery feather fan appeared on her fingertips. Contrasting with those slender white fingers, it was extremely fair and beautiful. Swoosh! Everyone only heard an explosive sound in the air. Their eyes were covered by the sky full of raging flames. Bam! The earth quaked and the mountains shook. The violent energy directly collided with those cultivators' attacks. In midair, two powerful forces collided. Yi Qing Luo's body slightly retreated 2 steps. Her face was slightly pale, but her fingertips exerted more force as she gripped the handle of the fan tightly. Facing these strong cultivators from Heaven Realm and various powerhouses, if it was one-on-one, she wouldn't be so worried. But the other party was moving like a bee pupa. Just at this moment, a majestic aura rushed into the two forces. As the profound waves surged, the sky seemed to sweep out one after another whirlpool. That burst of force joined in. In an instant, a huge profound wave was produced, like layers upon layers of ripples, spreading in all directions. He easily suppressed all the attacks in the surroundings. The violent hurricane obediently stopped after coming into contact with the ripple-like undulations. The aftershock caused the group of cultivators who launched the attack to be jolted back 2 steps, spitting out a large mouthful of blood. And what was shocking was, after the rippling Xian wave shook off the countless Xian waves, it lingered around the girl in the fiery red dress. With the young lady as the center, it swept around the surroundings. It didn't go near the young lady at all. The group of cultivators who were injured were stunned. What kind of situation was this? Why didn't that unstoppable force attack Yi Qing Luo? Damn, could it be that it depended on one's looks? No, not right. Look at the sky. It's a 9-tailed fox. 9-tailed fox. Suddenly, cries of panic erupted from the crowd. Countless people, subconsciously, looked towards the sky. Then he saw the 9-tailed fox in the sky. His 9 tails swayed in the wind. It also shook the hearts of the crowd. 9-tailed fox. This was the 9-tailed fox that was known as the divine beast. In the entire world, there was only one person who had it. That person was the mysterious and powerful person who was respectfully called Venerable Sovereign. The people from the various forces suddenly recalled the words of the Huangfu clan's young masters and ladies a few days ago. Divine Phoenix, profound heart jade, the tomb of the divine emperor. It must be true. That little bitch relied on this to attract Sir Dizun. If it wasn't for the divine Phoenix, profound heart jade, and the divine emperor's tomb, how could the dignified Dizun fall in love with a lowly trash from the lower domain? I was wondering why Lord Dizun would be with her. It must be because that little b** TCH used the divine Phoenix, profound heart jade, and the divine emperor's tomb to seduce Lord Dizun. Similar words were said by the Huangfu family. At that time, there were quite a number of forces who gave up on the divine Phoenix, profound heart jade, and the divine emperor's tomb because of the Overlord. They had not expected that. Lord Dizun really appeared. In order to save a lady, he appeared. The crowd was even more certain that what the Huangfu family's young masters and ladies said was true. Update complete. Moi moi. My babies. Now activate the double monthly votes mode. At the end of the month, those babies with monthly votes. Love you guys. End of this chapter. Chapter 44-49. Under everyone's gaze. That 9-tailed fox slowly landed. Everyone also clearly saw the peerless figure sitting on the back of the 9-tailed fox. A man in a flowing purple robe was lazily leaning on the soft fur of the 9-tailed fox. His luxurious and majestic posture was filled with a domineering and sharp, strong aura. After the 9-tailed fox landed, the man moved slightly. It was like a sharp, unsheathed blade, emitting a terrifying, evil aura. His peerlessly handsome face was cold and sharp, revealing a sharp and callous coldness. Everyone knew the golden half mask was the symbol of the Overlord. But now, even if the man didn't wear a mask, everyone was sure that this was the Overlord himself. Overlord. Everyone gasped, facing this mysterious and noble man. There was an inexplicable feeling of fear in their hearts. DMO Xian leaped down from the 9-tailed fox. His every move was noble and elegant. He didn't bother about these people in front of him, whose faces were perturbed or sunken. His gentle gaze fell on Yi Qing Luo. His coquettish thin lips hooked up slightly, stretched out a hand towards the young lady's direction. Yi Qing Luo sensed that the profound wave, which was like a ripple, was spreading in the surroundings. She already knew. This was DMO Xian's move. Her eyes looked at her man without blinking. Her eyes were filled with excitement. Deep in her heart, she was extremely calm about DMO Xian's strength. How strong was he? His strength had exceeded her expectations. This man was her man. Yi Qingluo's eyes were burning with unswerving determination, becoming more and more intense. The stronger her man was, the more excited she was. Her goal was to walk side by side with Dmo Xian. One day, she would be able to achieve her wish. Yi Qingluo's lips curled up as she pounced towards the direction of Dmo Xian. The man held the young lady's slender wrist and firmly brought the young lady into his arms. Yi Qingluo wrapped her arms around the man's waist and was about to speak. Suddenly, a few rays of profound light flashed in front of her. Yi Qingluo's expression changed immediately. Ah, Xian! She moved her 5 fingers, and the devouring flame fan swept up a hurricane, heading straight for the direction of the profound light. Someone actually took advantage of this moment to quietly make a move behind Dmo Xian's back. Bang! Boom! 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 The hurricanes collided and the profound light exploded, creating a cold and tyrannical air wave. It was like a huge mouth with its fangs and claws wide open, ready to swallow people. Dmo Xian clasped the young lady's waist tightly as he pulled her into his arms and leapt into the air. He sneered. His obsidian-like eyes were filled with a piercing coldness. His sleeves fluttered in the wind. A terrifying aura shot out from his sleeve. Ah, several screams rang out. He didn't even have time to react. That aura had already landed in the direction where the mysterious light came from. More than 10 profound practitioners fell to the ground with a plop. More than 10 of them turned pale as they pointed at Dmo Xian in disbelief. He had just raised his hand. Suddenly, a look of intense pain appeared on his face. Following that, his body fell straight down. Someone stepped forward and touched the nose of the man who had fallen down. His face turned pale as he looked at the crowd. Dead, dead, dead. Everyone's heart thumped. Their gazes turned towards Dmo Xian in unison. The man's cold aura and the overbearing profound wave that no one dared to approach made the man's noble and unattainable. Chapter 4450. This interlude made everyone stop the idea of Sneak attacking the Overlord. For a moment, the entire Heaven Border Ridge fell into a dead silence. After a moment of silence, Yi Qingluo looked at the brothers below. She patted Dmo Xian's arm and looked at those brothers. No one opened their mouths. Dmo Xian understood what she meant as he released the hand which was around her waist. The young lady was like a flame as she landed on the ground. Following her footsteps, the broken stones and grass on the ground made a rustling sound. The crowd didn't move as they stared at Yi Qingluo's actions, but no one made a move. Yi Qingluo walked slowly to Long Yunzhan's side. She first pulled Tong Ziqing's wrist and took her pulse. After ascertaining that there was nothing serious, her fingertips touched her fingers, and a bottle of pills was taken out as she passed it to Long Yunzhan. Qingluo. Tong Ziqing's lips were still oozing blood, and her usual cold eyes were sparkling. Yi Qingluo smiled at her. It's been hard on you guys. Take a rest, and leave the rest to me and Ah Xian. Her vision looked towards the side, standing on the same spot, staring at her in a daze as their eyes were burning with passion. Yi Qingluo walked towards them. Each of them took a pulse and were given a bottle of pills. Luckily, Gui Wu, Ghost Thief, and Zoemo were around. They only suffered external injuries and slightly more serious internal injuries, but it wasn't to the extent of incurable. Everyone, including Gui Wu and the other 2, confirmed their identities. She then heaved a sigh of relief. Yub, your energy has recovered. Yan Xiao looked at Yi Qingluo, taking out bottles of pills from the profound phoenix ring, as she was extremely excited. It was able to establish a connection with the profound phoenix ring. This represented that Yi Qingluo's energy had completely recovered. Yi Qingluo's lips curled upwards as she smiled sweetly. Yes, so. Have a good rest. I still need you guys to fight alongside me. Little Qingluo, aren't you worried? That they are interested in the things on you? Zomo's brows rose as his peach blossom eyes revealed a sense of ridicule. Yi Qing Luo turned her head as her gaze swept past the few brothers beside her. After hearing Zomo's words, the expressions of the few of them became visibly tense. Kitty Lee's eyes widened as she punched Zomo's chest with her little claws. What nonsense are you talking about? How could we? I trust them. The girl's firm tone interrupted Kitty Lee's words. Her smile was brilliant, and her charming eyes curved into a long and narrow arc. They value me more than I value myself. Besides, if they really want me, I won't hesitate to offer them up with both hands. Qing Luo. The few of them were stunned by Yi Qing Luo's words. They knew, if Yi Qing Luo said it out, then it meant that this was indeed what she was thinking. He offered it with both hands, such a valuable item. She was actually willing to give it to them with both hands. The girl's smile was as beautiful as a painting. Like a warm current, it seeped into everyone's hearts. Their restless hearts calmed down in that instant. They looked at each other and smiled. The originally stiff, oppressive, and suffocating atmosphere. The group in the middle of the crowd was extremely relaxed and warm. The two completely different atmosphere blended together. The crowd only felt fear and trepidation. Chapter 4451. Finally, someone could not hold it in any longer. He plucked up his courage and carefully looked at Dmo Xian. His voice trembled as he said, Lord Dmo Xian, could it be that you really want to obtain the divine phoenix, profound heart jade, and the secret of the divine emperor's tomb? That person's words immediately caused everyone to turn their gazes toward that person. Who would have thought that someone would be so bold as to question the Overlord directly? The profound practitioner who had been pushed out by his clan's leader also had an expression of wanting to cry, and he was so terrified that his entire body was trembling. However, due to the threatening gaze of the leader of the faction, he could only stare at him. That profound practitioner had no choice but to muster up his courage and speak again. Lord Dizun, you are already a revered existence in the Heaven Realm, and your strength has already exceeded the scope of the Heaven Realm. Why don't you give us the divine phoenix, profound heart jade, and the divine emperor's tomb? The man's voice was trembling nonstop. Every single word was trembling. Hearing this question, Yi Qing Luo, who was standing together with her brothers, raised her eyes slightly as she looked at that cultivator. Her long and narrow brows were sparkling with a biting, cold glint. Yi Qing Luo's gaze was piercingly cold. That profound practitioner felt uncomfortable from the piercing gaze. He rubbed his hands together and said, Don't you want to know the answer? Don't you want to know why the Overlord is with you? I don't want to. Yi Qing Luo replied without hesitation. The expression on her face didn't change at all. Are you scared? The man was so nervous that his face turned red. Are you afraid that His Majesty's answer will hurt you? That's why you don't dare. When he asked this question, the leader of the faction had made up his mind to break the trust between the two of them, regardless of whether the Overlord answered the question or not. Or answer the question. Yi Qing Luo would absolutely suspect Dmo Xian because of this. As long as Yi Qing Luo started to suspect Dmo Xian, the feelings between the two of them could not be shaken. Everyone prioritizes benefits above all else. Goading? Yi Qing Luo raised her brows as she laughed foolishly. Are you silly? Why should I trust a fool like you and suspect my own man? She wasn't stupid, and because of a single sentence from them, they had instigated discord between her and Dmo Xian. At their level, it was nothing compared to what he had encountered in the double-sided lake of the illusory heart. She had never suspected Dmo Xian at the double-sided lake. Not to mention now, that person's face turned red. The gaze of the master of power behind him was like a sharp knife, forcing him, urging him to act. Don't ask such rubbish. Yi Qingluo's gaze slowly swept past the surrounding forces. The girl's black hair fluttered in the wind. Her fiery dress fluttered in the wind. There was a hint of indolence on that gorgeous face, and it was incomparably cold and elegant. Then her pink lips moved slightly, and she said, word by word, "What belongs to me? As long as a Xian wants it, I will give it to him." This sentence was also a clear message to the crowd. Whether Dmo Xian wanted her divine phoenix profound heart jade or not, as long as he asked, he would definitely give it to her. Don't talk about any other bullshit conspiracy theories. He didn't like it. Everyone's faces turned extremely ugly. He didn't expect this young girl to not play by the rules. At this moment, the purple-robed man suddenly moved and pulled the young girl into his arms. Her back was pressed against his chest. Scorching hot. The man lowered his eyes, his gaze was gentle, and his voice was magnetic. Yes, Lil Luo Er's things are also this lord's things. Chapter 4452. His hand slowly circled to Yi Qingluo's chest. Slender fingers pressed on her heart. The man's fingertips were gentle, the scorching touch passed through the robe to the skin. Yi Qingluo slightly raised her head to look at him. Her face was reflected in the man's obsidian-like eyes. His thin lips lightly hooked. "If this lord wants, just take it, right?" As his voice fell, his slender fingers even gently flicked her heart, causing the young lady's petite body to tremble slightly. Yes. Yi Qingluo held his hand, her eyes firm, without any other emotions. Dmo Xian chuckled softly. The boiling hot chest behind her was also shaking up and down. This laugh, made by Mei, who was besieged by a group of people, couldn't help but burst out laughing. "Yi Qingluo, you really think that the Overlord has taken a liking to you? Ha ha ha. You still foolishly send yourself up. What's yours is his. He just wants to dig away your profound heart jade. You poor woman. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. The Overlord doesn't love you. He doesn't love you at all." By Mei's sharp voice, straining her throat to laugh nonstop. Yi Qingluo. This girl must have been so agitated that she became stupid, right? But Dmo Xian's action, indeed, would cause others to misunderstand the meaning of his words. Probably. In the eyes of outsiders, Dmo Xian placed his hand on her profound heart jade. Wanted to dig away her profound heart jade? Yi Qingluo expressed. This guy was purely trying to take advantage of her, and it was openly taking advantage of her, by Mei's exaggerated laughter, under everyone's suspicious gazes. Dmo Xian hugged the slender waist of the person in his arms tightly. His voice was clear but extremely dignified. "So, she belongs to this lord. Whoever dares to touch her is going against this lord." When this sentence came out from Dmo Xian's mouth, the entire dense forest fell into a dead silence. Bai Mei, who was laughing crazily, stopped abruptly, like a huge slap ruthlessly slapped on her face. Dmo Xian was simply. He was using his status to pressure everyone present. He wanted to become enemies with the entire world for Yi Qingluo. This sentence also successfully blackened the faces of several large forces at the front. "Lord Dizun, we all know that your strength is extraordinary and you are an admirable hero. But, Lord Dizun, you're here alone today. Why do you have to ruin everyone's friendship for a woman?" One of the leaders said with a cold expression. Dmo Xian's words had already expressed his attitude. If he didn't show up now, he would be dead. He was afraid that he would really silently agree to let Dmo Xian monopolize the divine phoenix profound heart jade. All profound practitioners wanted to obtain divine objects. Everyone wanted to enter the Tianya Ridge. Every faction had lost more than half of their elites. Therefore, no one wanted to give up so easily. That faction leader's words were immediately met with agreement from several other faction leaders. Dmo Xian faintly glanced at the direction of the voice and replied expressionlessly, "This lord has never been a hero." That faction leader's face turned red from being choked. Yi Qing Luo waved her glower-flamed fan impatiently. "Your words, are you openly declaring war with my Xian? Since that's the case, then there's nothing more to say. Let's fight directly." There was a type of person who wouldn't shed a tear until they saw the coffin. Did they think that they could suppress DMO Xian with their numbers? Naive. Hurry up and read the latest updates. Download address. Phone reading. Chapter 4453. Did her baby Xian look so easy to bully? Yi Lackey Qing Luo hugged her man's arm and pointed to the direction of the powerhouse who spoke earlier. "Xian, kill him!" The various powerhouses. She said it so arrogantly, directly provoking all the powerhouses. She actually pushed the Overlord to make a move. They thought that she really had the guts to go against them. In the end, it was because of the Overlord that she dared to be so arrogant. In the eyes of the powerhouses, Yi Qing Luo's current action was just like a young lady who relied on the Overlord to bully others. All of them looked at Yi Qing Luo with even more disdain. The divine phoenix profound heart jade on such a person was simply a waste of a treasure. But the Overlord was obviously interested in that divine phoenix profound heart jade. If they really wanted to get the divine phoenix profound heart jade, they must first get past the Overlord. If it was just the divine phoenix profound heart jade, most of the people present would probably back off. After all, for a piece of divine phoenix profound heart jade, they would become enemies with the Overlord. Then there must be a hole in their brains. But Yi Qing Luo not only had a piece of divine phoenix profound heart jade, and the secret of the divine emperor's tomb. The divine emperor's tomb. As long as they could get the secret of the divine emperor's tomb and open the secret of the divine emperor's tomb, there was a possibility that they could surpass all living things in this world. They could become the next emperor of divine emperors. By then, why would they be afraid of DMO Xian? They couldn't just give up like this. Absolutely not. The greed and unwillingness in everyone's eyes were obvious to Yi Qing Luo. Her pink lips curled up into an indecipherable, cold arc. DMO Xian's eyes were filled with adoration as he gazed at the lovely girl in his arms. His large palm gently caressed the young lady's hair as he spoke in a deep, magnetic voice. "All right." Just one word. The crowd instantly felt as though their hearts were beating a drum. Following that, they saw that godlike man gently place the young lady beside the group of young men and ladies. After that, with a leap, he floated in midair. The shimmering and resplendent purple light swept across the sky in a graceful manner. Boom! A profound wave exploded with a loud rumble. The surging energy in the air began to surge violently. The sudden burst of power caused the people from the other factions to be stunned for quite some time before they reacted. He hurriedly called for people to defend. However, no matter how fast they moved, they were still unable to move. No matter how strong he was. When DMO Xian's sleeves fluttered, the dark light filled the entire space. They were powerless to resist. The smell of blood and slaughter lingered in the air. As for the faction that had threatened them first, they were all shocked. The endless vortex opened its bloody mouth. Ah! A blood-curdling scream came from the vortex. That side which was originally full of ambition, attempting to use the power of numbers to threaten DMO Xian's forces, seemed to have seen the Grim Reaper, brandishing its scythe to reap lives. Slash after slash, he reaped their lives. The majestic Xian wave spread out majestically. The other forces quickly moved away to avoid it. The scene of him dodging in a flurry. It was like a slap landing on the face of the faction that was being swallowed by the vortex. Still thinking of relying on the power of numbers? Wasn't this, in an instant, whatever power was all gone, after the blood-curdling screams stopped. Only then did the surging vortex dissipate bit by bit. End of this chapter.